A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all old-time radio.
Jerry of the Circus. For Jerry of the Circus.
Here, Rag. Come on, we're going in the bus. Hello, Bumps. Can we come in?
Oh, well, looks like you're already in, Jerry. Oh, say, leave the door open. It's kind of stuffy in here.
Sure.
Well, Jerry, I want you to meet our new wagon mate. This is Carlos.
How are you, boy?
Glad to meet you. This is my dog. His name's Rag.
Jerry, this is Alfredo.
I'm sure glad to know you both.
Jerry and Rag. We will all be friends, eh?
I hope so.
Well, these are the famous Bendini brothers. Their family have made that name famous for generations.
Gee, really?
Thanks, Bumps. I take my bow now for both of us.
My brother never missed chance to take bows.
Well, I'm always proud to know show people who have followed in the steps of their forefathers and have become such artists that their name has continued to be famous for generations.
Yes, our father, he was a great artist, and his father and grandfather before him.
When we were boys, our father made us work. Always we learned to balance, to take pulse, to watch exact timing.
Timing?
Sure. You must learn exactly to be there the moment your partner expects you. A moment late, or a moment early, or if your partner is not braced, you both fall.
Gee, that must be hard.
No, it is not so hard. It takes only experience and attention. Never must we watch anything else that is going on when we are working.
Remember how Mama used suddenly to scream when we were little. Then if we looked away, our father scolded us.
Or when we were balancing on the wire and he would shoot off a firecracker right under us.
But didn't that hurt?
Of course not. He would not do anything dangerous. But he would just test us to see we know how to keep our minds on our business.
Oh, my gollies, look how late it is. Well, come on, Rags. We got to work.
I'll come on over with Carlos and Alfredo.
Okay, we'll see you later, boys. And remember, you go on at 3:05.
We will be there.
Be sure to catch our act.
Don't worry, I wouldn't miss it for anything. Come on, boys.
Say, what are these shiny poles for?
We work with them.
Oh, do they help you to keep your balance?
That's what they are for.
What's that you're doing to those shoes?
Putting rosin under.
But why?
Well, if our feet didn't hold firm, it would be tough, eh, Carlos? When our balance go, it is bad. Quick as a flash, we must twist back.
Sure, I know. Like riding a bicycle.
Can you ride a bicycle?
Sure, who can't?
I got a bicycle you can't ride, I bet.
Why, you're trying to kid me.
Oh, he's not. He means it.
I bet I could. But, gee, I've been able to ride any bicycle I've ever seen without handlebars and anything.
Wait till you get what you call a load of my bicycle.
I bet I can ride it.
It's a bet. Look behind that door and you'll find my bicycle.
Oh, say, gee whiz, it's a beaut. Golly, I never saw such a pretty bicycle, all shiny. Say, wouldn't I like to get this out on the road?
So you think you'd like to try it, huh?
You bet I would, say. But look, you haven't got any tires on her.
No. She don't have tires. No use for them.
What are you talking about?
You got to ride her on a wire. See the grooves in her wheels?
Say, what is this? Gee whiz, you fellas are sure getting a lot of fun out of me.
You mind being kidded, Jerry?
Oh, no, of course not. I just don't like to be so dumb.
You're a good sport. Don't mind my brother Carlos. He all the time likes to kid people.
Say, guess you fellas better hurry. It's late. Don't you go on at 3 or 5 minutes after? Golly, it must be way past that.
What you say? No, it can't be. So
Oh,
late.
no. And see, now we lose this job. What do we do, Carlos? I always say someday we kid ourselves right out of a job, and now we do it.
What you laughing at?
You think it's funny we lose our job?
No, I'm sorry, but you were both so funny. It's not 3 yet. You got time. I was just kidding, that's all.
Oh, the kitty's got spunk,
Oh,
huh?
you and me so scared I could hardly think. Well, I guess we had it coming. All right, Jerry, you win this time, but you wait. You just wait.
Quick, come on, get our things. I'll take the bike. You got the pole?
Yes, I am all ready.
Gee, I'd sure like to learn to work on a tightrope. It must be lots of fun.
Yes, you can learn to walk on wire easy. But wait, you see all the things we do on wire. They are not so easy.
Hey, here's the pad room. You see, you have plenty of time.
Good.
Hi, Bob. Shh, quiet, Rags.
Well, you're next, boys. Jerry and I'll watch you, so you better be good.
We bandinis are always good.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you at this time the world-famous Bandinis, those renowned artists who have performed before the royalty of several continents, who have been applauded around the world. The beautiful and talented Carmen and her 2 clever brothers, Alfredo and Carlos. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bandinis.
Gee, are they really as famous as he says?
Yes, they are, Jerry.
Gee, I can hardly wait. Say, isn't Carmen beautiful?
She certainly is. Look at her go up that ladder like an old deckhand.
What a pretty parasol. Why do wire walkers always carry parasols? The women, I mean.
Oh, helps them to keep their balance.
Like the balancing poles for men, huh?
Exactly. She's a graceful little thing, isn't she?
Almost like dancing, isn't it? Look, Carlos has gone up on one side of the wire and Alfredo on the other.
Well, looks like they're going out in the wire while she's in the middle.
Yeah. But why is Alfredo carrying that funny chair out with him?
Oh, I don't know, unless it's just...
Gee, look. Carmen is closing her parasol. She works without it, too.
I guess she's through with it all right. She's thrown it down into the ring.
Golly, it's sure a long ways down. And no net.
Hey,
Bumpy,
look at that.
Is she really going to sit in that chair?
Oh, looks like it.
But imagine balancing it up there on that wire. Golly.
Oh, she made it all right.
Why doesn't she sit still? Look how they're swaying.
I believe she's going to do stunts on that chair.
She is. Look, standing on her hands. Golly.
Say, she's got nerve all right.
I'll say she has. What's the matter, Rags? Oh, I see. No, you stay right here. Say, Bumps, look. That duck's loose.
Huh? Oh, say, that is funny. Belongs to Johnny Bradley. He never lets her run around like that.
Guess I'd better get her back. Here, Duck. Hey, say, Bumps, what's her name?
It's Lulu.
You're Lulu? That's Lulu? Well, Lulu, guess I got you that time. Lucky you had that string around your neck. Now, where's your master? Oh, Mr. Bradley! Mr. Bradley!
What?
Here's your duck, Mr. Bradley.
Oh, yes, to be sure. Thank you, boy.
My name's Jerry.
Oh, Jerry. Yes, I'll remember.
Don't you feel well?
Well, of course. I'm quite fit, quite.
You acted sort of, well, as if you didn't feel so good.
Oh, nonsense. Fit as a fiddle. Perhaps I just dozed a bit.
Well, if you're sure you're all right.
Thank you, my boy, for bringing Lulu back. I can't imagine how she got away from me.
Oh, that's okay, Mr. Bradley. Well, if there's nothing I can do, Rags and me were watching the new wire act. Come along, Rags. Golly, I hope we didn't miss the bicycle stunt. Say, Bumps, Did I miss much?
I'll say you did. What an act.
Aw, gee, is it all over?
Well, just finished.
Golly, and I missed a bicycle act and everything.
Oh, never mind, Jerry. There'll be lots of times to see them again. From the sound of that audience, I guess the Bendinis will be with the circus for a long time.
I sure hope so. Don't you, Rag? Hey, it's about time you got your face washed and your ears.
Ooh, so that reminds me, Jerry. I've been wanting to ask you where that key is to Rag's collar. He's got to be laundered before he goes out in front of another audience.
Sure, I forgot it. Anytime you say.
I don't see why you bother to lock that collar every time.
Oh, I don't know. Dad gave me the collar, and it was kind of tricky-like and all. Well, the key just came with it, so I kind of like to use it.
Oh, sure, Jerry, I understand. We'll both get at Rags right after the show. Oh, here come the Bendinis again.
Say, you were wonderful.
Oh, you liked our act, huh?
Liked it. Gee, it was marvelous.
You still think you'd like to try and ride that bicycle someday?
Oh, gee, I missed that part of it. I had to chase a duck that Rags was chasing, but what I saw was great.
It's beautiful work, boy. You're a true artist. And your sister, too. She's... where'd she go?
She go quick to dress. She is modest, not like us. We like to stand around and have everybody say how good we are.
You must meet our sister Carmen. She one swell girl.
I'd like to. She's one swell trooper, that's sure.
I'll say.
Thanks. Now, Carlos, you think they say enough nice things to us yet? Because I'm out and I think I'd better change.
No, they're not saying enough. But perhaps we save some of it and go change now, huh? Then later they can come and tell us some more nice things.
See you boys later.
They're nice, both of them. They sure love to joke.
Yeah, they're jolly folks. We're lucky to have them in our wagon.
There goes Mr. Bradley with his duck now. You know, Bumps, I think there's something wrong with him.
Why?
Oh, I don't know. He acts so funny.
Well, how do you mean?
Well, as if he were sick or something.
Hey, come to think of it, he hasn't looked too good lately. Oh, it's bad, too. He's not a young man anymore.
Look how funny he's acting. He goes on now, doesn't he?
Yes, in just a minute. Oh, Sir Johnny, is there anything wrong?
Oh, no. No, of course not. I'm all right.
Look, he most fell.
Get some water, quick, Jerry. Here, now, what's wrong? You look sick.
No, I guess I'm just faint.
Well, Jerry's getting you some water. I don't think you'd better go on for your act, Johnny.
No, I must go on.
Here's some water, Mr. Bradley. There. Is that better?
Yes. Yes, thanks very much. I'll be better now. Please say nothing of this to anyone. I'll be quite all right.
Well, of course, if you wish.
Yes, I do. And thank you for your kind assistance. Come, Lulu. We must go on now. Thank you again for your kindness.
Isn't he funny? We didn't do nothing.
Well, he's really sick.
He was worried, wasn't he? Golly, I guess we better keep our eyes on him. He may need some help. Wonder why he's so funny about not wanting anybody to know about it. Say, Bumps, do you think he's in trouble?
Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation brings you Crime Photographer.
Hiya, Mr. Marvin. I was just talking to Casey about you.
A few not-so-gentle remarks?
Oh, no. On the contrary, Tony, Ethelbert admires your gift of gab.
Yeah, Mr. Marvin. You got such a nice way of putting things. You make them words sound so important.
Oh, I'd like to take credit for that, but I can't very well. You know, one of the things I repeat most would sound important no matter who said it, Ethelbert.
Yeah? Now, what's that, Mr. Marvin?
That Anchor Hocking is the most famous name in glass. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Tony Marvin. Every week at this time, the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation of Lancaster, Ohio, and its more than 10,000 employees bring you another adventure of Casey, crime photographer, ace cameraman who covers the crime news of a great city. Written by Alonzo Dean Cole, our adventure for tonight, Treasure Cave. Early evening, the Blue Note Cafe. Leaning happily on the bar is Captain Logan, chief of the Homicide Bureau. And Ethelbert, the head bartender, regards him with a look of unconcealed envy as...
You and Casey are going to have 3 whole days at Red Lake, Captain, with nothing to do but fish, huh?
That's the program, Ethelbert. We're driving up there tonight.
Some guys have all the luck.
Yeah. It's the first time that Casey and I have both been free at the same time. I'm finally getting a chance to make the lug eat some of those tall fish stories he tells us.
That I'd like to see happen. To hear Casey tell it, he's a better fisherman than even Jonah.
Yeah. Jonah?
Yeah, didn't he catch a whale named Moby Dick or something, I think?
Moby Dick. Ethelbert, I always learn things from you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Well, here comes...
Hi, guys. Hello, Casey. Here's a stool for you, Miss Williams.
Oh, thanks, Captain.
Captain Logan's just been telling me you and him are driving to Red Lake tonight, Casey.
The Red Lake trip's off.
Huh?
Yeah. City Desk just handed Ann and me a special assignment, Logan. We got to be in Titustown tomorrow.
Is he kidding, Miss Williams?
No, Captain, we're going to Titustown.
Casey, I bet you asked for that assignment. You know darn well if we went fishing together, I'd call the bluff you've been making for years. I never believed you knew a trout fly from a bass lure.
Hold it, Junior. You and I are still going fishing tomorrow.
You're going to Titustown?
Lake Hopatobi. One of the best fishing spots in this state is only a few miles from Titustown now.
Hey, that's right.
You and Casey can leave tonight as you planned, Captain, and spend the whole morning on the lake. And I'll catch a train tomorrow, and that'll get me into Titustown around noon. Casey will meet me.
We'll clean up our assignment, then I'll rejoin you at the lake, pal.
Hopatobi is a fishing spot from what I've heard.
Ain't Treasure Cave near Titustown?
Just outside the village.
Treasure Cave?
Yeah, it's our special assignment.
You going to investigate the mysterious death there?
Investigate?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not cops, Ethelbert. Miss Williams will simply write an on-the-spot feature story for our Sunday edition. I'll make with a camera.
Well, you're a cop, Captain Logan. How do you figure them mysterious deaths in Treasure Cave?
Treasure Cave is near Titustown. All I know about them is what I read in the papers, which are usually wrong.
Is that so?
Why, Logan's right, Annie. Yeah. Because we poor newspaper mugs have to base most of our stuff on what the cops tell us.
Is that...
Casey, do you figure them guys found dead in Treasure Cave were just murdered normal, or do you dope it as the sinister work of supernatural forces?
Sinister work of what?
That last dead guy, the archaeologist, had been drowned, according to the doctors, but his body was in a part of that cave that is at least half a mile from the water.
Oh, surely you don't believe in ghosts, Ethelbert.
No, but how do you explain the other guy who was killed in that same part of the cave about a year ago, and the guy before him?
Well, they were obviously murdered.
Strangely murdered, I read.
They certainly got fancy bump-offs.
I'll say. One man had been hacked up with a cutlass several hundred years old, and The other had a bullet in his head that could have been fired only from an early 18th century muzzle-loading pistol.
Which weapons, Captain, were the kind once used by pirates? And dead pirates are supposed to haunt that cave because they're guarding treasures they hid there.
If one of the good guys in my department could be detailed to that backwoods Titus Town neighborhood, he'd clean up the case in 24 hours.
Oh? You're going to Titus Town, pal?
We're on vacation to fish.
But if the boss of your department was one of its good guys...
Nuts.
Casey, maybe you and Miss Williams can solve the treasure cave mystery.
Well, of course, we're only amateurs, Sherlock, so it may take us a little over 24 hours to crack it. Maybe even 25, Annie.
Maybe 26, Casey. After all, we haven't Captain Logan's long experience.
That's right.
It'll be embarrassing to the captain when you bust the case when it's known he was up there with you and didn't do nothing but fish.
Oh, well, we'll keep that out of the paper.
We've covered Logan before. We'll do it again.
You gotta protect your friend.
I see. All of you behind the needle, huh?
Can't you take it?
Casey, I can't get mixed up in that treasure cave thing officially, but well, I'll go there with you and Miss Williams tomorrow if you won't tell anybody who I am.
Okay, pal, it's a deal.
We got a call first on the man who owns the cave, Captain, Mr. Lefton. He doesn't like unpleasant publicity, but he's an old friend of our managing editor who finally got his permission to let Casey and me go over the place.
This Lefton's a pretty rich guy, I hear.
He's a retired broker who became a gentleman farmer. Fraser Cave's at one end of his farm.
I'll tag along when you call on him. Now, Casey, if we're going to get some early morning fishing, we got to hit the road.
Okay, let's go. We'll drop you off to your apartment, Annie.
Thanks. Good night, Ethelbert.
Good night, pal.
So long, Ethelbert.
So long. Oh, gee. A nice fishing trip and a swell murder mystery, too. Some people have all the luck.
Don't tell me, Casey, nobody ever caught fish with the wiggler lure you used this morning.
Oh, is that so? Well, I've caught fish and plenty with that wiggler. It didn't work this morning because every time I got a near strike, you were splashing around with that pork rind bait.
Pork rind's the best bass bait in the world.
That's so. Why'd you catch something with it then?
Well, only because you were...
Casey, Captain, please.
Huh?
Women are supposed to be gabbers, but no two gals ever extended a two-word subject like no fish into an hour-long argument.
How about the two-word subject long skirt, Annie?
Or a popular one-word subject, men.
If you men were gentlemen, you wouldn't gang up like that on a lady.
Gang up. Well, here's Lefton's house. Come on, let's pile out.
Hey, some place the guy has.
I'll say. Beautiful house and a model farm and the ocean practically in his backyard.
All we're interested in, Annie, is the cave he owns. Now, let's go in and introduce ourselves.
Casey, remember, I don't want to be known as a city cop here.
Oh, okay. Here, carry my camera and equipment case.
Carry...
Sure. We'll say you're my assistant photographer.
Swell, pal.
Wait a minute. Remember, I demand a respectful attitude from underlings. So please address me hereafter as master.
Nuts.
Oh, hey, a woman's just come out the door.
Good afternoon.
How do you do? We have an appointment with Mr. Lefton.
You're the newspaper people?
Yes, Morning Express. Our managing
My brother told me to expect you. I'm Miss Lefton.
Oh, nice to know you. This is Miss Williams.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Mr. Logan, my assistant. And my name is Casey.
Please come in.
Thank you.
My brother's in the living room here. Basil?
Oh, yes, Ida.
The newspaper people are here.
Oh.
Miss Williams, Mr. Casey, Mr. Logan. This is Mr. Lefton.
Sit down.
Thank you.
Ida, get Ramsey.
Very well, Basil. Excuse me.
Ramsey is my superintendent. He'll take you people to the cave. Frankly, I deeply resent the invasions of my privacy caused by the so-called mystery murders in Treasure Cave. So please get your material as quickly as possible.
Yes, we will, Mr. Lefton. I suppose the stories given to the press associations by the county sheriff's office are substantially correct.
Insofar as I know, and all I know is that during the past year and a half, 3 men have been found dead in the cave.
According to legend, Mr. Lefton, pirate treasure is hidden in the cave.
That's only a legend, Miss Williams.
Have you any theory to account for the recent murders, Mr. Lefton?
I think they're the work of a madman.
Why?
Because they were so utterly purposeless. None of the victims were robbed, and they had nothing in common. Sheriff Fargo agrees with me.
Yeah. The 3 victims had nothing in common, huh?
Nothing.
But all had your permission to be in the cave.
Yes, I've never thrown it open to the general public.
Well, then your permission is one thing they had in common.
That can scarcely account for their death, Mr.
Excuse
Casey.
me, Basil?
Yes, Ida.
Mr. Weiler's on the phone. Will you talk to him?
What does he want? The same old thing?
Yes, he says he's willing to increase his last offer by $2,000.
Tell him I say again that the land isn't for sale.
Why don't you tell him?
I'm tired of telling him. Anyway, it's your concern more than mine. This property is going to belong to you.
I'll tell him.
Forgive me for shouting at you, Ida. Did you send for Ramsey?
Yes, he's on his way here. Excuse me.
I apologize. This man Weiler owns the farm adjoining mine, and for the past 2 years, he's been trying to buy a strip of my land. I'm completely fed up with him.
Well, I guess we've all met tests like that.
Mr. Lefton,
Oh, yes, Ramsey.
your sister told me to come right in, sir.
Quite right, quite right. These are the newspaper people I told you about. Miss Williams, Casey, Mr. Logan. This is Ramsey, who runs my farm.
How do you
Very
do?
glad to know you.
He'll take you to the cave.
All right. We'll get going right away, Mr. Lefton, and thanks a million.
Not at all. Take them by boat, Ramsey. The best way.
Yes, sir. Come with me.
Okay. Thanks again, Mr. Lefton.
Our story will continue in just a moment. And now, a word about beer insurance.
Beer insurance? How does that work?
Easy. Select a good, tasty brew, then insist on having it delivered in glass bottles.
In glass bottles?
Yes, in glass bottles. Because glass bottles and glass bottles only can bring you beer and ale as it comes from the brewery, unaffected by any foreign taste or flavor.
Beer that's brewery bright.
Beer in glass.
And now we have a new kind of bottle.
The Anchor Glass one-way bottle.
It requires no deposit.
No return to the store.
When it's empty, dispose of it as you would any food container.
You are the first and last to use it.
It saves space in the icebox.
Easy to open, easy to drink from.
It's always in good taste.
And it protects that real brewery flavor.
As only glass can protect it.
Yes. The revolutionary new Anchor Glass one-way no-deposit bottle is sweeping America. For perfect flavor, demand beer in glass bottles. For extra convenience, demand your favorite brand in the new Anchor Glass one-way no-deposit bottle, a product of Anchor Hocking. The most famous name in glass.
This motorboat will get us to the cave in just a few minutes. If it took you folks overland, it'd take longer.
Cave entrance is near the beach, Ramsey, isn't it?
It's right off the water, Mr. Casey. The scientific fellers who came here told me Treasure Cave was hollered out by the sea. That's why it ain't a pretty cave like some I saw in Kentucky when I was soldiering down there.
Oh, did you go through Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, Mr. Ramsey?
Yes, ma'am. They tell me folks come from all over the world and pay big money to go through that place, but the hole under them cliffs I'm taking you to is nothing but a dark old tunnel.
How long you been out of the Army, Ramsey?
2 years. Got too old. Come right back here, and Mr. Lefton's sister gave him an old job back.
His sister keeps house for him?
Yes, ma'am. Ever since his wife died 20 years more ago. I figure Miss Ida got married or never got married herself because she thought she ought to take care of him and his daughter.
Lefton has a daughter?
She's had 3 husbands, all no good. She supported on her father's money. Now he's paying for a 3rd divorce so she can marry a 4th bum. The old man's crazy about his only kid, so she gets anything he's got and throws it away.
Guess he has plenty. We heard him refuse to sell a part of his farm at any price this afternoon.
That guy Weiler?
Yeah.
The boss won't sell the cave.
The cave?
It's on the strip of land Weiler wants to buy. It ain't worth much. Guess that's why he willed it to his sister. That no good daughter of his gets everything else when he dies. You can see the cave entrance now at the foot of the cliff.
Oh, that big hole there?
Injun Sam's waiting there. He'll take you to where them murders were committed.
Injun Sam?
Oh, Sam's what you call character. That's him standing on the dock there.
Big guy.
Weighs over 250 and none of it's fat. He killed a guy with just one punch.
He killed a man?
Yeah, set him up for manslaughter, but Sam got a full pardon. He came out of jail that same time I got out of the Army. Hey, Sam.
Oh, Ramsey.
Got them newspaper people aboard?
Huh? Go line. I've fastened both.
All right, here goes.
I got...
Oh, I'll help you out, lady.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Ramsey.
Sam, this is Miss Williams, Mr. Casey. Doggone, I forgot your name.
Oh, Logan, my assistant.
Oh, sure, Logan.
Oh, don't forget my equipment, Logan.
Yeah, Mr. Casey. I bring lantern here for each. Take there.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Leave you folks now and get back on my job.
Much obliged for your help, Ramsey.
I'll thank my boss. Watch out for him, Sam.
Aye, watch out, Ramsey.
Casey, I don't like this Indian Sam.
Neither do I, Annie. Not so crazy about Ramsey either.
Where you people want to go? To Spirit Temple place, where murders are done?
Yes, Sam. Take us to the Spirit Temple.
Come. It's dark inside. Use lantern and watch your steps.
When do we get to the Spirit Temple, Sam?
Don't now.
Hey, how big is this cave? You've been walking a long time.
Half mile.
And most uninteresting, just a dark, dreary tunnel.
Yeah, certainly no tourist attraction.
Cave made by spirits.
Ever run into one of those spirits?
I hear and see many things in caves that make me afraid. I not go alone to Spirit Temple anymore.
When did you see and hear those things?
After I come back here from prison.
Have you told the police about it?
I tell Sheriff Fargo. He say I crazy. I go ahead now. Cave gets very narrow here. You follow.
Hey, how does that guy strike you, Casey? You think he's nuts or putting on an act?
I don't think he's nuts, Logan.
He makes a swell suspect for all three of those murders.
Apparently the county sheriff doesn't think so.
Sheriffs are sometimes better politicians than they are policemen.
Said a mouthful there.
I'll say. Hey, the cave has gotten narrow.
Yeah, there's only a passage here.
Winds around like a corkscrew.
Watch that back there. Shine lights on floor. You go downward now.
We're watching, Sam. Careful.
Yeah, I'm just careful. It is deep.
And now the passage is getting wider. There's a squeeze back there for the guys outside, Casey.
A much tighter squeeze for an Indian Sam. This guy's built like a battleship.
Hey, we're coming out in a huge chamber.
Hey, ceiling must be 100 feet up.
Here is Spirit Temple for men's eyes.
Yeah. Show us where those dead men are found.
Come. Man killed by pirate sword died here.
Oh, the rocks are stained with blood, Casey.
Yeah. Come. Man who was drowned lie here.
That guy who drowned that man outside the cave and then carried him all the way in here must be a big, strong guy, Sam. Extra big and strong.
That's what Sheriff Fargo say. But I say, man drowned here in Spirit Temple.
There's no water here to drown a man in.
Spirits bring water. Spirits drown that man.
I'll believe that after I see his spirit at work. I'm beginning to wonder what kind of a law officer this Fargo is.
Hey, good sheriff. A good little man. He, my friend.
He's obviously your friend.
What you say?
Logan didn't mean anything, Sam. That's just his way. Hey, show us where the third dead guy was found, will you? The one who was shot with the old-time pistol.
He was on other side. Behind Temple also.
Logan, you've got to take it easy. Can't make cracks about this sheriff.
I know, I got sore. Why hasn't he put that big guy through the work? Smells like out-and-out protection to me.
Me too.
Well, okay, but Sam's watching us. Come on, break up this huddle. Did you call that big rock formation the Temple Altar, Sam? Is that it?
That is what it's called.
Yeah, it looks like a giant-sized altar.
Yeah, and the rocks around it look like giants praying. It's spooky.
Here is where man found with bullet in... Mr. Casey, Mr. Logan.
What?
Look there.
A man.
An arrow through his throat.
Logan. Went clear through. Look at the head of it sticking out.
Flint arrowhead. His old Indian arrow. Very old.
You know this dead man, Sam?
Yes. Sheriff Fargo.
Come on, get in the car. Let's think this thing over.
You know, we'd better do some thinking after what we've just been told by Sheriff Fargo's chief deputy.
I owe Fargo's memory a big apology. He hasn't been missing a bet, Casey.
You said it.
Everyone who had access to that cave was checked by the sheriff's office, and Fargo spent hours in the spirit temple searching for leads. That's what he's doing this morning when the coroner says he got that arrow through his throat.
He got it because he found a lead.
As the others were killed because they'd found something.
Oh, the pirate treasure?
Apparently.
Just before the first killing, that man Weiler tried to buy the cave and legal property rights to anything found on the person's land. Casey, drive out to Weiler's place and let's see what we can find out about him.
It might take too long, Annie. We haven't got much time to waste up here.
Drive back to Treasure Cave, Casey. We'll pay another visit to the Spirit's Temple.
Check, pal. My idea exactly. But we'll stop off first at Lefton's house.
Why?
Because every murder victim, including Sheriff Fargo this morning, had received formal permission from Lefton to prowl through that cave.
Yes, you gentlemen and Miss Williams may go again to the cave.
Thank you, Mr. Lefton.
Ida, will you phone Ramsey's quarters and ask him to take these people by boat?
Right away, Banky.
I'm terribly distressed by Sheriff Fargo's death. Terribly distressed. He was a friend of mine.
I can't get over what happened to Sheriff Fargo, Mr. Casey. He was a friend of mine. Only this morning I took him to the cave in this very boat. So I'm taking you folks now.
Did you take all the other murder victims to the treasure cave, Ramsey? In this boat?
Yep, all of them. Then turned them over to Injun Sam.
No. I go inside cave with none of those men who were killed. They say they want to be alone. So I give them lanterns. Then go up to my house on cliff. Shall I guide you again to the Spirit Temple?
No, Sam. We want to be alone.
Just give us lanterns.
Okay. I give. Then go my house.
Quite a few little things those murder victims had in common. Here's a group of rocks we'll concentrate on, Logan. They're set close together.
Yeah.
Only a small man could wedge himself between any of these big stones.
Sheriff Fargo, like the other murder victims, was a skinny little guy.
Another thing they had in common, Casey.
Yeah, there's so many rocks around here, so many possible passages.
Now shine your lantern into each crevice as we're doing it for you.
Try to spot a place that a little guy might squeeze through.
Or a little woman.
Huh?
Don't move, any of you.
Ida!
Miss Lefton.
You're armed with a very modern weapon this time, Miss Lefton.
Yes. A bow and arrow or an ancient pistol can be effective against a single man. But when you left my brother's house, I sensed that I might have to kill all three of you.
You reach your private passage through your brother's house?
I enter it from a point near the house. No one knows the spot but me. I'm sorry. I must kill you now.
Well, spoil the game you've been playing if you bump us off with anything so unfanciful as that rifle, Miss Lefton.
I haven't been playing any games. I've been protecting my personal interests. I discovered this passage while Injun Sam was in prison. And since there are superstitions about this cave, I killed the men who discovered my secret in an unusual way.
Your secret is the pirate treasure.
No, Miss Williams. This passage leads to another cave that extends for endless miles with ceiling of crystal-like gypsum and pillars of white onyx, a fairyland of beauty. People will pay to see it, pay millions, pay me, because I inherit the cave.
Why did you have to keep it a secret?
Because of Basil's worthless daughter. She'd get it if Basil knew the cave was of any value. He'd change his will. You see now why I protected myself in the only way I could, by killing those who threatened the security I've earned. I'll kill everyone who threatens. Oh!
I got her, August. You got her. I got her. You got so interested in what you were saying, you came too close to it.
Yeah. Here, that's where you pull the gun. When a woman starts to talk, you just gotta stop her.
We'll join the crowd at the Blue Note in just a moment. Many a housewife will tell you that she much prefers Fire King oven glass for this very practical reason. Fire King oven glass is so easy to clean. That's it. Fire King oven glass is so easy to clean. It won't absorb the baking stains and odors which are almost impossible to remove from ordinary baking dishes. Now, there's a scientific reason. Fire King oven glass has a special non-porous surface which is literally mirror smooth. This surface is achieved by a closely guarded Fire King secret process. This is just one of the many reasons it will pay you to insist on Fire King oven glass by name, for there is only one genuine Fire King oven glass. Now, you'll find a wide variety of Fire King casseroles, pie plates, and general utility dishes in all sizes wherever household glass is sold. You'll be amazed at the low price, and you'll be charmed by the clean, gleaming, pale blue beauty of Fire King oven glass, a product of Anchor Hocking, the most famous name in glass.
The case was busted in less than 24 hours, huh, Miss Williams?
In less than 8 hours, Ethelbert.
8 into 24. Gee, that's only a third of the time Captain Logan said.
There were 3 of us working on it.
3? Well, Casey and Captain Logan makes only 2. Oh, you.
Yes.
There's a few things I don't get, Miss Williams. How did the guy get drowned in that spirit's temple half a mile from water?
Well, it doesn't require an ocean to drown a man, Ethelbert. A small pail of water will do the job if you first hit him on the head with a rock and then dunk his face.
So that's how.
That's how.
Clever, you women.
Thanks.
The only thing I got against women is they talk too much.
Oh, yeah?
Casey and Captain Logan still up at the lake catching fish.
They're still at the lake, not catching fish. And they're talking about no fish. Talking.
Crime Photographer, starring Stotts Cotsworth as Casey, is brought to you each Thursday by the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation, makers of Fire King oven glass, Anchor glass containers, Anchor caps and closures, all products of Anchor Hocking, the most famous name in glass. Crime Photographer is directed by John Deep. The original music is by Archie Blyer, and the program features Miss Jan Miner as Anne and John Gibson as Ethelbert. Herman Tittison is the Blue Note pianist. Daylight saving time ends next week, and the entire country will be on Standard Time. If your area has not been on Daylight savings time, tune in Crime Photographer 1 hour later. This is Tony Marvin saying goodnight for the Anchor Hocking Glass Corporation of Lancaster, Ohio, with offices in all principal cities of the United States and Canada. Thursday night on CBS is the biggest show in town, so stay tuned for exciting dramatizations on Reader's Digest Radio Edition, which follows immediately over most of these stations. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Broadcasting System presents
Hello, I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Yes, this is the Crime Club. I'm the librarian. Cupid Can Be Deadly. Yes, we have that story for you. Come right over. Ah, you're here. Good. Take the easy chair by the window. Comfortable? The manuscript is on this shelf. Here it is. Cupid Can Be Deadly. The very unusual story of a dream that was made of the stuff that killed. Let's look at it under the reading lamp. The house in the hills of Westchester was big and rambling, like a medieval castle. And it was owned by the beautiful and temperamental Linda Barry, the celebrated actress. It was late Saturday night, and Paul Palmer, a Broadway columnist and one of the weekend guests, came quickly down the stairs. And as he made the right-angle turn toward the library, he met Professor Caldwell, a psychologist, and another one of the guests.
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Palmer. I didn't hear you coming.
I walk on my toes. Have you seen Toby?
Toby?
Miss Randolph.
Oh, yes. No, I haven't seen her in quite a while.
Where can that girl be?
Have you looked in her room?
Just now.
Well, I'm going out for a drive with Sam Winslow.
That phony private detective?
I'll look around outside if I should see Miss
Yeah,
Randolph.
tell her about me.
Well, of course. In the meantime, you might ask Miss Barry.
Where is she?
In the library. Now, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Well, thank you. I asked Mr. Winslow to be ready in 10 minutes. It's almost that now. Well, good luck, Mr. Palmer.
Why don't I stay home for a change?
Paul.
Linda, have you seen...
Yes?
What's the idea of the gun?
You'll find out.
Ah, the lady's mad.
You've got no idea how mad, honey.
You're sizzling.
Don't be clever.
I can't help it. Give me the gun.
No.
Give it to me. You can sizzle without it.
You have no right to do that, Paul.
It's done. Shall we go before an arbitration board?
You keyhole peeper.
Oh, a big one for my column. Linda Barry slaps a guest in her own house. And who was that guest? Your Broadway reporter.
That ought to make me the toast of the world. You can go home now, anytime you want.
Wait a minute.
I haven't got time.
We'll give it to you. Who was going to get that bullet?
Take your hand off that door, Paul.
Was it going to be your manager and half a heartthrob, Wally Brooks?
Paul?
Ah, then it was for the other half a heartthrob, Sam Winslow.
No.
You'll have to suck me again, honey. You're not leaving this room until... Oh, the lady's smiling.
Oh, you're such a fool.
Don't tell the guys in the other papers.
That bullet was for your girlfriend, Toby Randolph.
It's no use trying to talk me out of it, Wally. I'm going to get away from this place as soon as I can find Paul.
All right, Toby, you want to go, you can go, but why?
I don't like it here.
Meaning me?
No.
The house?
No.
Professor Caldwell's been lecturing you about the mine.
He doesn't bother me, Wally.
Then it must be on account of Sam Winslow.
Well...
That no good four-fletcher,
He's not the reason, Wally.
Oh?
I can handle him.
Say, you're not running away from Linda, are you?
I am.
But why?
I don't like the way she creeps up on me. That's too bad, honey.
Huh?
See what I mean? Walking in the garden, arm in arm, for a rosy picture.
What's this all about, Linda?
I'll bet you couldn't find such a beautiful setting anywhere. Even the moon is perfect tonight.
What on earth are you talking about?
Excuse me, Wally. I'm not sticking around to find
You're
out.
You're sticking around, Toby.
Hey.
And you're going to find out how I really feel about you. Go of my hair.
Linda.
You're not going to leave this place alive.
Let go of her, Linda.
You get out of this, Wally. Get her out of my hair. She's killing me.
I said let go of her, Linda. Let go.
You're breaking my fingers.
I'll break them, Linda, if you don't get your hands off.
All right. Let go of me.
Now.
Thanks, Wally. Now I'll give her a sample of my
brand. No, you don't.
But she got me from behind.
I don't care how she got you. But I want to know why. Well, Linda, why?
Nobody's making a fool out of me.
Nobody has to. What's that?
That's enough.
Just let me get at her. I'll show her how to pull hair.
Stop it. That goes for both of you.
Listen, Wally, anytime we need a referee...
Shut up, Toby.
Stand over by that tree.
What about her?
I'll take care of her. All right, Linda. How was Toby making a fool out of you?
She wouldn't leave you alone.
What?
From the minute she got here with Paul, she's been trying to get her claws into you. And you let her.
Are you nuts?
You didn't do a thing to stop her. I've been watching you. Both of you.
You are nuts.
It took you a long time to find out, Wally.
Shut up, Toby, and stay that way until I got this thing settled. Now, Linda, since when do I have to sign the book every time I look at another girl?
If you only look.
There's nothing between Toby and me. She's got Paul, and for what I know, she's completely satisfied. Am I right, Toby?
You're right.
Yeah. But you are not completely satisfied with me, Linda, are you?
I never said I was.
Well, you never had to. We've been engaged for exactly 1 year. How many protégés have you had in that year?
Don't be low, dear.
5. And now it's that cheap, chiseling Sam Winslow, a private detective, the worst of the lot.
I like to help people.
Sure, but why are they always men?
Coincidence.
Oh, cut it out, will you? You're not talking to someone behind a bib.
Darling, I didn't know you were jealous.
I'm not. I've never said a thing to you.
Third party here. Can we wait?
No, I don't care who's listening. I'm fed up and I'm...
Yes?
Yes, and you can get yourself another manager, too. The less I see of you, the better.
You're raving.
We'll see about that. Come on, Toby. Let's find Paul and get out of here.
I'm on our way. Just a minute, Wally. You're not walking out on me.
Save your breath.
I said you're not, dear.
Listen.
When there's any air to be given, I give it. And, Wally, I'm not giving you the air yet.
You don't seem to get the idea, Linda.
I happen to like you, darling. Enough to marry you tomorrow. You either marry me tomorrow, or you go to prison.
What's that?
I'll repeat it for you. Slowly.
What have you got up your sleeve?
The ace of trumps, and it's been there for a long time.
Okay. Show it.
You're a thief, Wally.
What?
And I'm the only one who could keep you out of jail.
You'd better start explaining, Linda.
All right. If you don't mind the crowd.
Well, let Toby hear it.
You've been forging my name to checks.
Have I?
$70,000 worth. You know my signature, and you've been doing a perfect job.
Where are those checks?
You'll see them in court.
I see them now. Where are they, Linda?
Stop it. It's twisting my arm.
Come on, baby. Produce.
You'll never get them, Wally. You could kill me, but you'll never get those checks.
Well, it's about time, Professor. What kept you?
I didn't realize you were waiting, Mr. Winslow.
Said 10 minutes, didn't we? I've been sitting in this car for 20.
I'm sorry, but I met Mr. Palmer, and he was agitated about the disappearance of his lady friend, so I
tried some psychology, huh?
Not quite. I looked around for her just to be helpful.
You're the type, aren't you?
Well...
Yeah. Okay, let's go for that drive.
Mr. Winslow, would you mind if we didn't?
What's the idea?
It's rather late, and I can talk to you here just as well.
Okay.
It's about... Well, I think you know.
Me and Linda?
Yes.
You don't approve?
Miss Barry is my patient. Her welfare is my concern.
I'm not good for it, huh?
I think you ought to leave at once. I'm sorry. I was only trying to relieve a delicate situation. Miss Barry and Mr. Brooks are engaged to be married.
I read that in Paul Palmer's column a year ago.
They should be married, Mr. Winslow. But as long as you're in the picture...
Stop right there, pal. If Linda wants to wash me out, she can do it any time.
Well...
The fact is, she wants me in. So that's where I stay.
Would you marry her? You won't. You don't love her.
No, I'm not exactly indifferent to her charms, Professor.
She has a lot of money.
Now, you catch on fast, don't you?
Suppose I were to tell her that.
You want to live, don't you?
Mr. Winslow, are you...
You want to go right on psychologizing dames for big fat fees? You can't do that when you're dead.
You're not threatening me, young man. I know Miss Barry has given you money. And I know that she's made you the beneficiary of one of her largest life insurance policies.
You know a lot, pal.
I also know that you've been poisoning her mind against Mr. Brooks. But you'll never get another chance. When I get through telling Miss Barry the truth about you...
Nice speech, Professor. Now take a deep breath.
What?
Hold it. Hold it. It might have to last you a lifetime.
Here's your room, Toby. Good night. I'll see you in the morning.
Paul, I don't know why I listened to you. After what Linda said and did to me tonight...
She's a crackpot, but she's loaded with material. At least 2 columns out of 1 weekend.
All right. But I don't like the idea of sleeping in her house.
Good night, sweetheart. Pleasant dreams.
Who's there? It's me, Paul. Let me in.
What's the matter, Toby?
Don't ask me now. Just let me in.
Wait a minute. I'll get in my bathroom.
Won't you please hurry?
I'm doing the best I can. Even getting into a bathrobe takes time. All right.
Oh, Paul, darling.
What's the matter?
I had the most awful dream. What? I dreamed I was Cupid riding a black horse.
Toby, do you realize it's only 5 o'clock in the morning?
I couldn't sleep a wink after that. Every time I closed my eyes, there was that black horse. And Linda.
Oh, my aching life.
It was terrible. I was sitting on the horse, and I kept shooting arrows into her heart.
Yeah.
Poisoned arrows. Every time I took one out of the quiver, I dipped it into a bottle of cyanide that was tied around the horse's neck.
Go back to bed, sugar. What you need is some sleep.
But I can't.
Darling.
Oh, you've got to help me. Let's go down to the living room.
But, honey, why?
That's where the dream took place.
You expect to find a black horse down there?
I don't know what I expect to find. But if you don't come with me...
Get that look out of your eyes, Angel.
Paul, I'm desperate. I've never been so upset before.
Now, take my arm, Cupid. We're off to catch a dream.
I wouldn't bother you ordinarily.
Sometimes I wish you would. Hunting we will go. Hunting we will go. Watch your step the stairs.
Thanks. If I could only be as calm as you.
My arm would feel fine. You're digging your nails into it, and it's not even responsible for your dream.
I'm sorry.
I'll bet you are.
But I am.
You never liked this arm anyway. Now tell me the truth.
Paul, that light.
Where?
Under the living room door.
Okay. So you're crazy about my arm. Stay here.
Oh.
Do you want to get knocked down by a horse?
Going with you.
Good Lord.
Linda. On the floor. With an arrow in her chest. I killed her, Paul. Don't try to tell me I didn't.
You didn't.
Oh, what's the use? You'd say anything to make me feel good.
Now, listen, honey.
I'm a killer, and no amount of coaxing is going to convince me that I'm not.
But dreams don't make murderers.
How do you know I was dreaming?
You said so.
Maybe that's what I thought, but actually... Goodbye, Paul. It's been nice knowing you.
Where are you going?
The police will have to know about this, and I'm going to phone them.
No, you're not. Put it down, Toby.
I've got to give myself up.
Okay, then I'll put it down. Sorry. Your hand was in the way. Now, you'll do me one favor. Don't tell anyone about your dream.
We're going to have the police in on this, aren't we?
Sure, but not until I've got you straightened out. Come on.
Where?
Out for a walk. Let somebody else
Good
find...
morning.
Huh? Ah, Professor Caldwell.
Up bright and early, aren't we? I always say there's nothing like the country air to... Good heavens. Behind you, Miss Barry.
We found it that way.
An arrow in her chest. Hi. Her pulse. Mr. Palmer, do you realize she's been murdered?
I'm beginning to.
Who did this?
We don't know.
I did, Professor.
Toby.
You, Miss Randolph.
You'd better send for the police. I'll tell them everything.
Well, as long as you've gone this far, why not tell it to Professor Caldwell? He's a psychologist.
Is this a problem in psychology?
She had a dream.
It was more than that, Paul. I saw the whole thing. The living room, Linda, and I was shooting arrows into her heart.
But you were riding on a black horse. Professor, do you see a black horse in this room?
Very, very interesting.
She was also dressed up as Cupid.
She was?
Forget it.
Miss Randolph, you had a dream in which you saw yourself as Cupid murdering Miss Barry?
So I thought.
But there was no romantic conflict between you and Miss Barry?
Who said there wasn't?
Toby, for Pete's sake.
Let her talk, Mr. Palmer.
She'll hang herself.
We'll see about that. Go on, Miss Randolph.
Last night, Linda accused me of trying to take Wally Brooks away from her. We had a hair-pulling match.
Amazing. The most unusual dream coincidence I've ever heard of.
Professor...
Now, don't be alarmed, Mr. Palmer. This young lady is quite innocent.
You mean it couldn't have happened as I told it?
Certainly not. You're not Cupid and there's no horse. But...
Yes?
Well, on the other hand, Miss Barry is dead. There is an arrow through her heart. This young lady is quite innocent.
You mean it couldn't have happened as I told it?
Certainly not. You're not Cupid and there's no horse. But...
Yes?
Well, on the other hand, Miss Barry is dead. There is an arrow through her heart. That can only mean that if you're guilty, Miss Randolph, then you must be a somnambulist.
Oh, good Lord.
But now, Toby.
Paul, as a child, I used to walk in my sleep regularly.
You don't care what you do to yourself. Listen, Professor, I've got an idea.
I'm afraid we need one, Mr. Palmer.
If you hypnotized Toby, we could really find out what you did last night, couldn't we?
We could.
All right. Then hypnotize. Sit down, Toby. We're going to work.
But, Paul, I told you.
I want to know the truth. And I've got it.
You mean I don't have to be hypnotized?
No. All you've got to do is remember what happened after Linda pulled your hair last night.
She...
What you told me just before you went to your room.
Wally said he was through, and she... Of course.
She accused Wally of forging her name to checks.
Mr. Palmer, do you realize what you're saying?
I'm saying what Toby said Linda said. And she was there. Come on. We'll ask Wally.
Don't knock yourselves out, kiddies.
Sam.
Yeah. I'll bet she never expected to die that way off stage.
How long have you been here, Sam?
Not long enough to embarrass anybody. Why?
What made you come down? It's only 6 o'clock.
I get restless sometimes. Why?
You've got a reputation for waking up with a dinner bell.
Oh, you think it was me, huh?
It could have been, Mr. Winslow.
Oh, we're going to hear from the professor.
Mr. Palmer, this man is the beneficiary of a $50,000 insurance policy taken out by Miss Barry.
Well, I'll be...
Not anymore, Toby. Okay, Sam. You tell me.
I had influence with the babe. I was her type.
That's not telling me, pal.
She hired me to find out where her dough was going. Checks she didn't remember signing. Then she took a shine to me. What was I going to do?
Now, listen,
That's
Sam.
exactly what I did. After I found out who was signing those checks with Linda's Johanna Hancock. It was her boyfriend, Wally Brooks.
I know all about that.
Great. Now, here's something you don't know. Where's Wally?
What?
His room's next to mine. I heard him going out about 10 minutes ago. That's what woke me up.
That's ridiculous. Mr. Brooks has a car in the garage, and we heard no car.
There it is, Professor. Oh, what do you say, Paul?
They'll send for the police. They know all the answers. Oh, well. How about some breakfast, Toby?
No, thanks, Paul.
It'll be an hour before we hit New York, and Oh, look. There's a nice quiet place just around the next intersection. The food's good.
I don't feel like eating, Paul.
What's the matter with you?
Why didn't you let me tell the police about my dream?
Oh, it's that dream again.
I killed Linda.
Listen, honey, the police know how to analyze a crime, and they suspect Wally.
Just because he disappeared.
He didn't take a thing that belonged to him, not even his socks.
It doesn't prove he's a murderer.
He's been forging Linda's name to checks, and she found him out.
He wouldn't have killed her for that. She was ready to marry
Now,
him.
listen,
I
honey.
won't. Wally's not a killer. And I don't believe he was ever a thief.
But the police found the checks.
Oh, what's the use? You've made up your mind to cheat the law, and you don't care who dies, as long as it isn't me.
You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm going to prove it once and for all.
If you only could.
We'll turn around, and then we'll hit right for police headquarters.
Why?
In your dream, Cupid was dipping the arrows into a bottle of cyanide.
Yes?
So far, there's been no mention of cyanide by the police or the coroner. I'm going to insist on a lab test of the arrow point.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But while that's being done, Angel, you keep your mouth shut about that dream. Understand?
That's a very unusual request, Mr. Palmer.
I'm an unusual guy, Captain.
Yeah?
You read my column?
Sometimes.
And you want to know how I work. I do a thorough job on everything and everybody.
Yeah?
Captain, it wouldn't take much of your time to do a lab test on that arrow. Please.
Why should you be interested, Miss Randolph?
Well, you see...
Frankly, I don't.
Paul, I'm going to tell him.
Toby.
I can't live with it anymore. I've got to talk.
You've done too much already. Let's get out of here.
Now, wait a minute. She's got to talk, and I'm here to listen. Go ahead, lady.
I think I killed Linda Barry.
Uh-huh.
Paul and Professor Caldwell have been trying to tell me I couldn't have done it. But I know differently.
Sure. Here's a pencil and some paper. You write it down.
Nothing doing, Captain.
Now, you stay out of this, Mr. Palmer.
But you don't understand. You can't take a confession from her.
You wait outside.
Oh, for Pete's sake, why don't you listen?
Outside, mister.
All right. But you'll never convict her. She claims there was cyanide on the tip of the arrow.
There was.
What?
Here's the coroner's report. You want to read it?
Good Lord, but she only dreamed about it.
Now, listen, you. If you make one more attempt to influence this lady,
I've got to use that phone.
Are you getting out of here?
Yes, but let me call Professor Caldwell, the psychologist. He's an expert on dreams.
Call him from the other room.
Okay. But hold up that confession until he gets here, will you?
The other room, mister. Now, here's the door.
Thanks for the assist, Captain. I never would have made it without your help. Hurry up, hurry up.
Hello?
Now, Professor Caldwell,
Yes?
this is Paul Palmer.
Oh, Mr. Palmer.
Palmer, I'm so glad you phoned. How soon can you get here?
No, I can't. I want you
But
to...
you must. Mr. Brooks came in a few minutes ago.
What?
And without a word of warning, he began to beat up Mr. Winslow. If you don't get out here as soon as you can, there'll be another murder in this house.
Wally? He came back?
Please, Mr. Palmer, as soon as you can.
It'll take me at least 15 minutes.
That won't do any good.
It'll have to. Now, listen, Professor. Don't let Wally get away. I want him to meet a certain captain of the police with a first-hand story of why he disappeared.
Is that you, Mr. Palmer?
It's me, Professor. Where's Wally?
You said you'd be here in 15 minutes. It's more than half an hour since you
I
called.
had a flat. Where's Wally Brooks?
We took him up to his room about a half an hour ago.
You took him up?
He means we dragged him up.
Sam, what are you doing on your feet? But, Professor, you told
It was
me...
phenomenal, Mr. Palmer. I went back to the living room after I spoke to you, and there was... I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I was standing, and Wally wasn't.
But I thought that
So it seemed, pal. He took me by surprise, but all I had to get over was one punch. And when that was settled...
Okay. Let's go up and have a talk with him.
If he's conscious.
Ah, Sam, don't flatter yourself. You don't hit that hard.
My pal.
Not by any stretch of the imagination. Professor, would you say that Sam is human?
Definitely not. A species of two-legged animal. If I had my way,
Which you haven't.
Okay, we'll settle this later. Listen, Wally.
Hey, what do you know? The guy came to.
Not so as you can notice it.
Well, we left him on the bed. If he didn't come to, how'd he get in that chair?
Come here, Professor.
What seems to be wrong, Mr. Palmer?
Check him. I've got an idea he's dead.
Dead? Mr. Winslow.
Now, don't look at me. I couldn't have killed him with one punch. I don't hit that hard.
He is dead, Mr. Palmer.
Now, wait a minute.
Shut up, Sam.
How can a guy tell without a stethoscope?
Mr. Brooks has no pulse, and there's no action in his heart that I can hear.
Let's call a doctor.
I am a doctor, Mr. Winslow. My specialty happens to be psychology, but that doesn't mean that I...
Never mind that, Professor. I know what killed Wally.
What's that?
Poison. From this tiny bottle.
Bottle? But I don't see it.
He's clutching it in his hand, and he's got a grip on it I can't break.
Leave him alone, pal. The guy committed suicide. I want the cops to find that bottle in his hand.
But I've got to know whether it contains cyanide. Come on, Professor. You should know how to flex muscles.
I'm afraid it would be impossible in this case, Mr. Palmer.
Why?
Obviously, rigor mortis is set in.
I'm not giving up. If that bottle contains cyanide, then... What'd you say, Professor?
Rigor mortis, Mr. Palmer. The rigidity of the muscles that occurs after death.
Yeah. Sam, close that door.
What's the idea?
Close it. I want to ask the professor a few questions with no way out.
Okay. You've got me guessing, pal.
Mr. Palmer, what is the meaning of this?
I'll let you know, Professor. Sam, get on that phone. Call the Medical Society of New York.
What?
Don't look so dumb. Ask them if they got a member by the name of Professor Caldwell. What's your name, Professor?
You're very clever, Mr. Palmer.
It's about time. But it didn't take you long to get that gun out of your pocket, did it?
Does it matter?
Why did you kill Linda?
She made a startling discovery.
The checks were forged?
They weren't forged, Mr. Palmer.
Now, look. Oh, no, I see what you mean. She signed them herself while she was under your influence.
Hey, what goes with this guy?
An electric chair, Sam. He's a phony psychologist, and Linda was one of his patients. Each time she came to his office, he got her just in the right mood to be hypnotized. Then he'd tell her to write a check and sign it. They were all made out to cash, weren't they, Professor?
Of course. And she cast them for me while she was in that right mood.
But why did you kill her?
I told you.
Can't you figure it out, pal? She accused Wally. I suppose she had the guy arrested. You think DAs are dumb?
No.
They investigate everybody. And what do they find out? This guy's a phony doctor.
Yeah. Remind me to like you the next time we meet.
Thanks.
Now, Professor, about Toby. You hypnotized her, too. And you induced her to have that dream. Why?
The young lady was a perfect subject after her quarrel with Miss Barry.
But how did you get to her? I took her to the door of the room and I saw her go in.
She came out later. The poor child was very disturbed. Naturally, she needed attention.
Dirty hypocrite. Take it easy, Paul. It's done.
Yeah. You changed your mind about Toby, Professor, when Wally disappeared. When he came back, you set him up as the perfect suicide.
It's quite simple. Such an easy way out. No trial, no investigation. The suspect committed suicide. Q.E.D.
Q.E.D. Well.
Yeah. So that's why you tried to get rid of me, Professor.
I think I'll go now, gentlemen.
You didn't want a private detective around while you were fixing a murder and a frame-up.
Goodbye, Mr. Winslow.
You even tried to put the frame around me. You know, Professor, that makes me mad.
Really? Would you like me to put you out of your misery?
I'm standing here by the door, Professor. If you want to get out, you'll have to come through me.
You insist on being a fool, don't you?
No, Professor. Mr. Palmer, present. You shouldn't have forgotten about me, not even for a minute. Bad psychology.
Paul, I'll take the gun.
I'll take it, Sam. One more twist. All mine. Now, Professor.
I have nothing to say to you, Mr. Palmer.
He doesn't like me, Sam.
Oh, I'm sick about it. You think I ought to kill myself?
You're a hard nut to crack, chum. Okay, you take one arm and I'll take the other. We'll give this guy a lift down to police headquarters that won't be exactly psychological. Hunting we will go. Hunting we will go. Yeah? Yes, Toby?
How did you decide that Professor Caldwell was the murderer?
He said rigor mortis.
Yes, that's what you told me before, but how did you really decide?
Wally couldn't have been dead more than half an hour. Rigor mortis takes from 6 to 8 hours to set in. Any doctor knows that.
Any real doctor. But what made Wally so rigid?
Hypnotism. Did you ever see people hypnotized?
Several times, but of course. Their bodies become so rigid they couldn't even be bent.
There you have it.
Thanks, I don't want it.
Death doesn't relax those muscles. They stay that way.
I still don't want it.
You're hard to please, young lady. What do you want?
Would you really like to know?
Sure.
I want something to eat. I'm hungry.
And so closes tonight's story, Cupid Can Be Deadly. Stedman Coles wrote the radio script. Roger Bauer produced and directed. Sidney Smith played the part of Paul Palmer. Virginia Dwyer was Toby Randolph. Cameron Prudhomme was Professor Caldwell. Helen Shields played Linda Barry. Larry Haynes was Sam Winslow. And Sherling Oliver was heard as Wally Brooks. Oh, I beg your pardon. Hello. I hope I haven't kept you waiting. Yes, this is the Crime Club. I'm the librarian. Next week? I'm sorry, we won't be here next week. No, this is the last program in the current series. Yes, we're sorry, too. Of course there'll be something here next week. Racket Smashers. Yes. At the same time and over most of these same stations. You'll be listening? Fine. I'll tell them to look for you.
This program came from New York. This is the last broadcast in the current Crime Club series. In its place, the Mutual Broadcasting System will present the exciting real-life crime drama, Racket Smashers. Don't fail to tune in at this time next week over most of these stations for the true criminal cases of Racket Smashers. Stay tuned now for another Mutual favorite, Quiet Please, which follows in just a moment. This is the world's largest network, serving more than 450 radio stations, the Mutual Broadcasting System.
Mr. District Attorney, champion of the people, defender of truth, guardian of our fundamental rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mr. District Attorney is brought to you by Vitalis, Vitalis. Vitalis, the famous preparation that keeps your hair well groomed, and used with a speedy 60-second workout, helps you to keep your hair. And it's will be the duty of the district attorney not only to prosecute to the limit of the law all persons accused of crimes perpetrated within this county, but to defend with equal vigor the rights and privileges of all its citizens. Our case tonight opens in a recently completed defense factory located in your district attorney's city. Mr. Winstead, the personnel manager of the plant, is busily working at his desk.
Winstead speaking.
Hello, Mr. Winstead?
Yes?
My name is Preston.
Yes?
I'm calling you about that ad you got in the papers. The one where you're looking for skilled workers.
Oh, yes.
Did you get any answers to that ad, Mr. Winstead?
Not a single one. Why?
I didn't figure you would.
Are you applying for a job, sir?
No, I'm just interested in your problem.
Well, look, old man, I'm very busy right now.
You want
and
skilled workers, don't you?
Yes, I need them very badly. But
How
if
many
you want
guys
an
do
applicant,
you figure you need?
well, at least 100 immediately. But why should that concern you?
I can get them for you.
How?
I got an angle.
Now, look, you're wasting my time. I've spent weeks combing every available source to find men. There just aren't any to be found.
I said I could get them for you, Mr. Winstead.
Where?
I'd like to tell you that personal. Could you meet me someplace, maybe?
Well,
Suppose I drop by in my car and pick you up.
You can get me 100 skilled workers?
That's right.
Very well. I'll be ready in half an hour. Where are we going, Mr. Preston?
Oh, we'll just ride around a little.
I can't spend much time with you.
Well, this shouldn't take long, Mr. Winstead.
You say you can get me 100 skilled workers.
Is that all you need?
No, I can use as many as you find. We're working on a very important government war contract.
Uh-huh.
It's being delayed by lack of manpower. I've got to get men.
Well, I'm the guy that can do it for you.
Oh?
Yeah, I got an angle.
What is this angle? How long will it take you?
A few days, a week maybe.
Where will you get them?
I don't know yet.
You certainly make this all sound very mysterious.
Well, you wouldn't tell me your business secrets, would you?
Just what do you get out of it?
I collect what you call a commission, like.
Oh, from the workers?
Oh, no. From you.
How much?
Say 10% of each guy's pay.
Their first week's pay.
You kidding? Why, that wouldn't even pay my expenses.
Well, what is your price?
10% every week as long as you use me.
Well, that's ridiculous. They might work at our plant for years.
Sure.
That could amount to almost $1,000 a week.
I know.
That's way out of line, Mr. Preston.
That's my price. No cut rates. So how about it, mister?
Well...
If you stall around, it'll cost you more.
All right. It's a deal.
Okay.
Where can you be reached if I want you?
A friend of mine runs that bowling alley over on West Street. You can get me there.
Very well.
Now, I think we ought to put our deal in writing, Mr. Winstead. Did you send for me, Chief?
Yes, come in, Harrington.
Right.
Let me have that letter on my desk there, Miss Meadowy, please.
This one, Chief?
Yes, that's it.
What's up, Chief?
I just received this letter from District Attorney Sanford.
Sanford, West County?
That's right. This is rather important information he's passed on to me.
Yeah?
I want you to hear it, both of you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Dear D.A., I want to report a condition that has arisen up here in West County and is likely to spread down into your county as well.
Huh?
Due to the war, we've had a rapid expansion of defense industries. Many new factories have been opened up here. We welcome such effort, of course, but this welcome is tempered somewhat by a rapidly rising menace which is undoing all the good the expansion has brought. And this menace is labor pirating.
Pirating?
What's that?
Yes, Harrington. And he goes on to explain. Labor pirating is the act of enticing workers from one plant to another by any and all available means.
Oh.
Of course, the real evil resulting from this pirating is that it slows up vital war production.
Gosh.
There's an acute shortage of skilled workers of nearly all kinds, so it's difficult indeed to replace those who are taken from one job to another.
Oh, is that a scurvy racket?
Okay.
Any more, Chief?
Yes, he says the bait used ranges from the lure of higher wages to out-and-out kidnapping. In most instances, neither the employers nor the workers are at fault.
The real offenders are a group of unscrupulous negotiators, usually ex-racketeers. One of these is a man named Barney Preston. He has been indicted by our grand jury because of his activities in hijacking labor. I regret to tell you, however, that Preston has avoided arrest by leaving town. I have information that he may have gone to your city. Undoubtedly, he will continue his practice there. Any efforts on your part to apprehend him will be appreciated. Sincerely yours, George Sanford.
Oh, how do you like that? Something new has been added, huh, Chief?
Yes. Another field has been opened to the racketeers.
That kind of business is practically fifth column work.
Yes, I know.
I never heard of this Preston guy. Did Sanford enclose any information about him?
Yes, a complete description.
Good. I'll get out a general alarm on him right away, Chief.
Yes, Harrington, I wish you would.
Right.
And, Miss Miller.
Yes, Chief.
I want to send a letter to the heads of all the factories in town. I want to warn them that labor hijacking will not be tolerated here.
Nice one, Eddie. Gives you a spare.
Yeah, how's the bowling going, fellas?
Oh, hello, Mr. Monroe.
Hi, I'm sorry I can't use that other alley. We're short of pin boys tonight.
Oh, that's okay. We can do enough damage to one alley. Right, Eddie?
Sure. How's everything over at the factory?
The same as usual.
Well, you boys better make it while you can, I guess.
What do you mean?
Well, I really shouldn't tell you this, but you fellas been good customers of mine.
Yeah?
I guess it's only right you should know.
About what?
Well, a couple of the big shots from the plant were in here bowling a few strings last night.
Yeah?
They'd also been hitting the bottle a bit, so I guess that's why they were careless about what they were saying.
Uh-huh.
I happened to overhear them talking about the government's going to cancel all the contracts with your factory.
What? Did you hear that, Eddie?
Yeah, how come, I wonder? Well, I heard this man say something about the motors didn't operate right when they were used on the fighting front.
Well, what do you know? Did they say the factory was going to shut down or something, Mr. Monroe?
Well, if they blow the contracts, what else can they do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
None of my business, but if I was you fellas, I'd start scampering around for another job.
Yeah, you're right.
By the way, I just happened to hear about a plant that's looking for men right now.
Yeah, where? Did they?
Yeah, it's a new factory just opened up on the other side of town. They need fellows in your line real bad.
I think maybe we ought to hop over there, huh, Eddie?
Oh, you said it.
Thanks for tipping us off, Mr. Monroe.
Oh, glad to do it. Hey, but look.
Yeah?
Don't say anything to anybody else about it, will you?
Oh, don't worry, Mr. Monroe. We won't tell a soul. The way I got it was this, see? The government's canceled the contracts, and the plant closes down next week. Sure. I heard it from one of the managers.
The government inspector told me the whole thing. The plant closes down in 4 days. Sure, that's a fact. Now, if you're smart, you'll jump over to that new factory that just opened up over...
And how many men did you say you've lost in the past few days, Mr. Lewis?
Over 100, Mr. District Attorney. And they're still leaving. It's serious. War orders are being held up. That's why I came here to see you this afternoon.
Well, did you tell him there was no truth to the rumor?
Well, yes, of course. But the story has been magnified so by now that there just doesn't seem to be any way of stopping it.
Well, a published statement of denial from the government ought to take care of that. I'll arrange for you at once.
Well, that would help. But it still doesn't get back the men I've lost.
Oh, I know.
Hey, look, Mr. Lewis, have you checked up on where these guys of yours have found new jobs?
Yes. Most of them have gone over to that new factory on the north side.
Are you sure of that?
Yes. They're doing important work, too, of course. War orders, but so are we. They've got no right to hire my men away from me.
Yeah, Chief, I guess that guy's in town, all right.
Yes, I'm afraid he is.
Who's that?
There's a man named Preston.
Oh.
He's a racketeer who specializes in hijacking labor. Say, tell me, Mr. Lewis, do you know why your men left? Is this new plant paying higher wages?
No, they're not. I'm sure of that.
We're both paying union scale, and my men were getting plenty of overtime.
I see.
I've already spoken to Mr. Winstead over there. He's the personnel manager.
Winston.
I asked him to explain the coincidences that made so many of my employees go to his place for work.
What did he say to that?
He just denied any knowledge of conspiracy.
I suppose I talked to him.
Yeah, his number is Maine 2800.
All right, thank you.
Yes?
Miss Miller, would you get me Maine 2800, please?
Yes, sir, right away.
I want to talk to a Mr. Winstead.
Right, Chief.
Have you any idea how this rumor started, Mr. Lewis?
No, I haven't been able to trace it at all.
It sure don't take much to make them spread, does it?
I should say not.
All right, I'll take it. Yes?
I have Mr. Winstead for you, Chief.
Oh, fine. Put him on.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Winstead. This is the district attorney.
Oh, yes. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
What's on your mind?
But I have Mr. Lewis, the president of Amalgamated, here in my office.
Yes?
We're trying to track down the source of this rumor that's robbed him of some of his best workmen.
Oh, I see.
I understand that most of his employees have gone to work for you. Is that correct, sir?
Well, I guess we have hired some of his former employees.
Well, why did they select your plant?
No, I don't know, Mr. District Attorney.
The reason I ask is that we believe there's a man named Preston behind all this. He specializes in hijacking labor. I wondered if he'd been to see you.
Why, no.
I see. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Winstead. I may call you again if anything develops. You see, a serious offense has been committed against Mr. Lewis's factory. I intend to prosecute whoever's at the bottom of it.
Yes, of course.
Well, good day, sir.
Goodbye.
Did you get anything out of him, Chief?
Oh, nothing definite. But he did seem rather upset by my questioning.
Yeah?
I think I may call on Mr. Winstead. A good personal talk with him might accomplish a lot.
Yeah.
I'll see him the first thing in the morning.
Looking for me, Mr. Winstead?
Oh, hello, Mr. Preston. I didn't think you'd ever get here. I've been waiting almost 2 hours.
Oh, that's too bad.
Never mind that. I've got to talk to you, privately.
Okay. We'll use the office here in the back. Come on.
Yes, thank you.
Why didn't you try a little bowling while you were waiting?
Well, I did, till I got too tired.
Oh. We'll go in here.
Yes, very well.
Now, what did you want to see me about?
Well, it really has to do with a misunderstanding.
How's that?
I had no idea that you'd use the methods you employed to get those workmen from me.
No?
No.
How'd you think I'd get them? Pick them off trees?
I thought you were going to use legitimate means.
You already tried that, didn't you?
Yes, but...
But what?
Now, look, Preston, we need workmen badly. We've got a lot of government contracts, and they're important in winning the war.
Yeah?
But I know somehow you've been...
What?
Well, stealing men from the amalgamated plant.
Stealing?
Their work is important, too. I don't know how you got those men to leave, but I'm against getting them your way, that's all.
You're a little late with that idea, ain't you?
Not necessarily.
What do you mean?
I'm doing the only thing a patriotic American can do. I'm sending those men back to their original jobs.
You're what?
I'm calling the deal off.
That's what you think.
Now, see here, Preston. I don't want to have any trouble with you.
No?
You see, I happen to know something about your background.
Uh-huh.
I learned that you make a specialty of hijacking labor.
Where'd you find that out?
The district attorney told me.
Oh, now I get it. You're trying to wiggle out from under to keep your own nose clean.
I'm merely trying to do the right thing, that's all.
Look, Winstead, you made a deal with me. You're going through with it, see?
I intend to do just that. I'm going to pay you the commission on 1 week's salary for those men.
That's strictly for chickens. My payoff comes every week.
That's impossible.
Don't forget I've got a contract with you, my friend. The DA might like to see that.
That contract is not binding if I don't keep the men.
Now, look, sucker. I don't want to waste no more talk on you. The deal stands.
Oh, no. I'm not going to let you blackmail me. I'll go to the district attorney and tell him everything.
Wait a minute. You stay right here.
Get out of my way.
Stay here, I said.
Put down that bowling pin.
Sure, where do you want me to put it?
No, don't.
Well, I guess they better set him up in the next alley.
This labor pirating situation is a very serious one for all of us because of the way it cuts down on war production. And now, with Winstead murdered,
Your district attorney's job becomes doubly difficult. Before we hear from him again, though, you know, men, in these busy days when so much depends on the work we turn out, it's very important to keep physically fit. And that's why we get as much outdoor exercise as we can. It's so good for our general health.
But it can be mighty bad for your hair, for the hot sun bakes it and makes it look dry. And the shower bath or swim afterward drenches your hair, making it look lifeless and stringy.
Yes, that's true. But there's an easy, speedy way to help overcome the damaging effects of sun and water. A 60-second workout with Vitalis. Vitalis. Vitalis.
This brisk massage with Vitalis loosens your scalp, stimulates the circulation, routs unsightly, embarrassing loose dandruff, and helps to prevent excessive falling hair. The pure vegetable oils of Vitalis come to the rescue of your oil-depleted scalp. So when you comb your hair, it lies smartly and smoothly in place and looks well-groomed.
That's why thousands of men in all walks of life use Vitalis and the 60-second workout, in spite of summer sun and soaking water. This famous Vitalis workout helps you to keep your hair for the days to come and keeps your hair good-looking every day. Now back to Mr. District Attorney.
Mr. Winstead's body was found early this morning, Miss Mahon.
Where, Chief?
In a ditch beside a road on the outskirts of town.
Well, how was he killed?
Hit on the head with a blunt instrument.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yes.
Were there any other clues?
And the police are working on that now.
Oh.
The thing that bothers me is I might have prevented this if I'd gone to see him last night.
Oh, I doubt that, Chief. I honestly do.
Yeah.
Where's Harrington?
He went over to Winstead's factory to see what he could pick up.
Chief, do you suppose this man Preston killed Winstead?
It's quite likely he did, yes.
Well, the police still haven't been able to find any trace of him.
Oh, I know.
Excuse me, Chief.
Yes, come in, Harrington.
Okay.
How did you make out?
Well, I picked up some very tantalizing information.
Good or bad?
Well, one thing is very good. You can make book now, Chief. That the killer was this Preston guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I got that from Winstead's secretary.
Well, how did she know?
Well, she didn't. It's what she told me that adds up to that.
Yes, and what was it?
Well, right after you called Winstead yesterday, he made another call. He dialed the number himself, but his secretary happened to overhear him ask for a Mr. Preston.
I see.
Well, Preston wasn't there, but he was expected. So Winstead told whoever was on the other end of the line that he'd be right over. Then he grabbed his hat and hightailed it out.
Well, does the secretary know what number he called, Harrington?
No, she don't. And there's no way of checking it either.
I see what you mean by tantalizing information. We know everything but the whereabouts of the murderer and the location of his hideout.
Yeah.
Well, where do you go from there, Chief?
Well, there's one thing we can try to trace to its source.
What's that?
The origination point of that rumor. We can be reasonably sure now that Preston started it. That might lead us to him.
That's right, Chief.
But how do you find that source?
And I think Harrington can help us out there.
Me? What do I do?
Yes, I want you to go to Winstead's factory.
Yeah?
I'll arrange for you to get a job there.
All right.
And try to talk to every man who left Lewis's plant because of the rumor.
Right.
One of those men must know where that rumor started.
Hi, Miss Miller. Where is he?
Well, he's still at police headquarters, Harrington.
Oh, boy, I got a red-hot lead for him.
Really?
Yeah, I think I found out where that rumor was started.
Where?
Well, I got it from two guys. They didn't want to tell me at first. I had to flash my tin before they'd even talk.
Well, what did they tell you?
Well, it seems they got the story from some guy who runs a bowling alley right near Lewis's factory.
Yes?
He handed it out to them as very confidential stuff.
Well, that's how all rumors are planned.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm going over and see that guy right now.
Well, what'll I tell the chief?
Well, just give him the information I just gave you and tell him that I'll call back as soon as I make sure I'm on the right trail.
Well, when will that be?
Just as soon as I make that guy in the bowling alley talk.
Come in. Yes?
Are you Mr. Monroe?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, good. My name's Harrington, District Attorney's Office. I want to ask you a few questions.
Okay. Sit down, Mr. Harrington.
Thanks.
What seems to be the trouble?
Well, I'm on a kind of a tough assignment.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm chasing a rumor.
See any laying around here?
No, but that don't prove nothing. They never show up till you get them into light.
Oh, that makes it tough, huh?
Yeah, well, not always.
What made you look here?
Well, I got information that this is the place where the particular rumor I'm chasing got started.
Is that so?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Mr. Monroe, I understand that you were the guy who put it underway.
What was this rumor?
Well, it had to do with the factory across the street closing down. You spread that report, didn't you?
No.
No?
I might have talked about it, but that was only because of what I'd heard some other guys say.
No, but you did talk about it to men who were working in that plant.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
They were good customers of mine. I didn't want to see them wind up on the limb.
No. Monroe, did you ever hear of labor pirating? Well, suppose I ask you another question. Did you ever hear of a guy named Preston? Barney Preston?
No. Don't know the answer to that one either. I'm doing very good this quiz game, am I?
No, you ain't, but don't let that worry you, brother. I ain't got to the jackpot question yet.
What's that?
Well, it has to do with a guy named Winstead. His body was found in a ditch outside of town.
Winstead?
Yeah, he was doing business with Preston. Preston was hijacking labor. Mm-hmm. He was able to do that because of a rumor. Now, you started the rumor. Now, give me the answer to that one, wise guy.
Well, I'm sorry. I got to blow that one, too.
Oh, that's too bad. Well, suppose we played this game in a new location.
What do you mean?
I'm going to take it down to headquarters. The DA will ask the questions from here on.
Hi, Monroe. Who's this?
My name's Harrington. Who are you?
What's it to you?
Your name wouldn't be Preston, would it?
Why?
I've seen pictures of a guy by that name that looks just like you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Don't reach for that gun, copper. I got you covered.
What? Nice going, Monroe. Who is this guy?
Cop from the DA's office.
Well.
He's been playing a game, trying to get some answers.
I got my answers.
Sure, only they ain't going to do you any good.
No?
Sit down again, copper.
Sure.
We're going to play another game, only this time we ask the questions.
Is that you, Chief?
Yes, Butter.
Well, how'd you make out at headquarters?
Oh, very well. I examined Winstead's body and found what may be an important clue.
Really?
Yes, it more or less identifies the type of place in which he was killed.
Oh, that's swell, Chief.
Have you heard from Harrington?
Well, yes, he came in about an hour ago. He seems to have found something, too.
The source of the rumor?
Yes, at least he thought so.
Mm-hmm.
He was on his way to investigate when he called.
Who is he after?
The proprietor of a bowling alley located near Lewis's factory.
A bowling alley?
Yes.
You say he went there an hour ago?
Well, yes, Chief. What's wrong?
Well, the clue I found revealed that Mr. Winstead was murdered in a bowling alley.
What do you want to jockey around with this guy for, Monroe? Let me knock him off now and get him out of here.
No good. They came up with that Winstead guy before he was cold. Just because you were in a hurry.
What do you think we ought to do?
Put him on ice till the joint closes. Then you can put him away for keeps.
Don't you guys know it's rude to talk about somebody when they're right in the room?
Keep quiet, copper.
You mean just because you tell me to?
Shut up, I said.
Oh. Brother, if you didn't have that gun in your hand...
Look, Monroe, I can't wait around here till the joint closes. There's too much heat on me.
You want to get rid of this guy, don't you?
Sure, but why can't you take care of him?
Because that ain't in my line.
Nice, clean fella.
Well, I ain't hanging around, see? Look, suppose I give it to him now, then you can get rid of him. You can do that, can't you?
Well, okay. But no guns. I don't want any noise.
I'll give him the same thing I gave Winston.
No, you won't, brother.
You ain't got nothing to say about it.
I got this much to say. You're going to have to use a gun on me and use it now. I ain't waiting for that bowling pin. Give me that gun. Let him have it, Monroe. Show me. Let him have it.
All right, you two, stand where you are. You're covered. Take that gun away from him, Harrington.
Right, Chief. Thanks for the lift.
Who are these men?
Well, this character here is Barney Preston.
Oh, this is a pleasant surprise. Harrington, you may arrest him for the murder of Mr. Winstead.
Of course, we know Preston murdered Mr. Winstead. But how can your district attorney be so certain of it? Well, we'll hear the unusual clue that gave him the solution of the case in just a moment. First, men, When you crawl out of bed these August mornings and your face feels hot and sticky, enjoy a quick, smooth shave with Ingram's. Yes, with Ingram's shaving cream. Because Ingram's lather is purposely made cool to make your face feel cool and keep it feeling cool for hours.
But that's not all this cool lather of Ingram's does for you. It piles up on your face in great velvety billows. It conditions your skin and softens and wilts your whiskers. Gets your beard and skin all ready for your razor. So with Ingram's shaving cream, you shave quickly.
Yes, some men say that by using Ingram's, they cut minutes off their shaving time.
Also, you shave smoothly and cleanly and look younger when you're finished. Finally, you shave pleasantly, for the cool lather of Ingram's makes your face tingle with a feeling of delightful coolness. And it keeps your face feeling cool long after you put your razor away.
So, men, why don't you use Ingram's? That's Ingram's. Ingram's shaving cream. It's that famous shaving cream that you can get in either a jar or a tube, whichever you like. Now, why not get a jar or a tube of Ingram's from your druggist tonight and enjoy a quick, clean, cool shave with Ingram's tomorrow? Now, here is your district attorney.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think the first thing you should know is that we were able to get a conviction against Barney Preston for the murder of Winston. And he paid for this crime with his life.
Oh, Chief, I think you should tell the folks about the clue that you found when you examined Winstead's body.
Very well, Miss Miller. That clue was some powder-like substance that I found under one of Winstead's thumbnails. On examination, this substance turned out to be a special kind of chalk that bowlers use to keep their fingers dry when they handle the ball. I was then able to establish that Winston must have been in a bowling alley at some point just before his death.
And that's why you came running over to Monroe's alleys on the double, huh, Chief?
Yes, Harrington. I knew there was a good chance of your meeting the same fate.
Oh, I'm glad you sent that Monroe guy away, too, Chief. He was getting a cut from Preston. He'll have time of 15 years to think up some new rumors before he gets out.
Yes, and speaking of rumors, Harrington, I'd like to repeat at this time a message that I sent to every employer and war worker in our city. And these were the words. If you are engaged in any work that will help our nation win this war, stay with your job. Don't listen to rumors or offers of better pay or even seek easier work. The production line is the front line here at home. Anyone who disrupts this line is guilty of sabotage, just as Preston was. This is the people's war. By your effort, we can win it.
Right, Chief. And if a guy's looking for a job where he can help win this man's war, the place to find out where he's needed is the nearest United States Employment Service Office. They give all the dope on all kinds of defense jobs.
Yes, indeed they can.
What about next week, Chief?
Well, next week we'll have another dramatic case. The case of the phony payoff. It's a colorful and exciting story. I hope you'll remember to join us again next Wednesday, and until then, thank you and good night.
The names of all characters in tonight's dramatization are fictitious, and any resemblance to names of living persons or actual places is purely coincidental. Jay Johnston was featured in the title role. Len Doyle as Harrington, Vicky Vola as Miss Miller. The music was under the direction of Peter Van Steeten, and the authors were Ed Byron and Jerry Devine. Mr. District Attorney is brought to you by the Bristol-Myers Company, makers of Vitalis, used by more men to keep their hair well-groomed than any other preparation of its kind. Just think of the word vital and add I-S. Vitalis, Vitalis for your hair.
Friends, the sponsors of Mr. District Attorney cordially invite you to hear radio's most popular modern songsters, Dinah Shore, in person, over another network every Friday night. Consult your local paper for time and station. Hear Dinah Shore next Friday.
This program came to you from New York. This is the National Broadcasting Company.
Tonight, Gangbusters presents the case of the New York Narcotics King, who ran a $2 million dope racket until he was tripped up by a federal agent's broken leg.
Gangbusters has asked the Honorable John C. Hilley, Assistant United States Attorney, Southern District of New York, to narrate tonight's case. Welcome back to Gangbusters, Mr. Hilley.
Thank you, Don Gardner. It's a pleasure being back.
But now, Mr. Hilley, perhaps you'd like to say a word about the problems involved in tonight's case.
That's a large order, Don. A word certainly couldn't cover it. But I can say this. Traffic in illicit narcotics is a multi-million-dollar international business. But most important, narcotics are a breeder of crime. Innumerable thefts and robberies today are committed for the primary purpose of getting funds for the criminal to purchase drugs. In other words, stamp out illegal traffic in drugs, and we cut our annual crime bill nearly in half.
And what about tonight's case, Mr. Hilly?
Well, Don, it involves a syndicate of some of the most despicable criminals I've run up against in all my years of law enforcement work. In a federal district courtroom right here in New York City, just about a year ago, two surly, expensively dressed defendants were standing before the bar of justice as the usually mild-mannered judge addressed them in a tone seldom heard in his courtroom.
I'm given to understand by Captain O'Neill and the Treasury Department that it's common knowledge that you, Galliano, are the boss, and that you, Lawyer Cano, are second in command of one of the largest narcotic syndicates in the country. You bring physical ruination, mental decay, and moral corruption to thousands of victims.
Judge, Your Honor, I'm not that bad after you get to know me.
If you have no respect for this court, Galliano, I'll hold you in contempt.
I apologize, Your Honor.
I'd like to send you men to the penitentiary for the rest of your lives. You belong there. But the rules of evidence were formed to protect the innocent as well as convict the guilty. It's not a reflection on our system of justice that often the guilty are comforted by those rules. I want you to understand that. I'll rule on the defense motion. The indictment is dismissed for want of evidence. Adjourn until 10 tomorrow.
Lawyers, the Honorable United States Court for the Southern District of New York is adjourned until 10 a.m.
Come on, Luggage. Let's get out of here.
Yeah. And he laced it into us.
So he laced it into us. We're walking out, aren't we? Wait a minute. Hey, Counselor, send me a bill. You'll get a check in the next mail. Good work. Come on, Luggage.
What'd you have to crack wise to the judge for? He could have nailed you for contempt.
Well, didn't I apologize? Forget it. We got work to do. I want those 5 ounces delivered tonight.
Hey, Pip, for crying out loud, we ain't even out of the courtroom yet.
So we ain't out the courtroom. Get those 5 pieces of brown stuff delivered tonight.
Commissioner of Narcotics, Treasury Department, Washington, D.C., to District Supervisor, Bureau of Narcotics, New York. Extraordinary measures approved in case of Joseph Gagliano, alias Pip the Blind, and Angelo Loyacano, alias Luggy, connection $2 million narcotics syndicate.
Hi.
What do you want?
I'm Luggy.
So you're Luggy?
Angelo Loyacano. I'm with Pip the Blind. What are you drinking?
Strychnine. You want a dose?
Look, you want to do business, don't get smart.
I deal with nobody but the principals. Where is this guy, Pip?
He's a homebody. He don't go out nights.
All right, run along, chum. I don't talk unless I know who I'm talking to. There's too many agents floating around.
You think I'm an agent?
I've seen crummier-looking ones.
Hey.
Now, look. I spent 3,000 miles from San Francisco and a lot of time making this connection. I meet Pip and do business with him, or I don't do business.
You don't meet Pip. What's your full moniker again?
Porter. Vince Porter.
Ah, you got some good friends, Vince. They made you a good connection.
That's what friends are for.
How much of the bribe do you want?
Get out of here.
What's the matter?
What's the matter? I'll tell you what's the matter. 2 minutes we've been talking. I don't know you're okay. You don't know I'm okay. Who you kidding?
This is New York. This is the Big Apple, Vince. We're quick and to the point.
I don't care if it's Timbuktu. I've been around enough to be careful what I'm walking into. And I don't like doing business with a guy who offers me something before he knows I'm okay. That means maybe he's not okay.
We got this thing set, Vince. We do business in broad daylight practically.
Yeah?
Sure. We've been in and out of that federal courthouse so much we practically got a lease on that joint. They ain't stuck us yet.
There'll come a day.
Not the way we work. We make a deal, see. Say you want 10 pieces. It's set for delivery, okay.
We make a meet someplace. You pass me the dough. Okay. I leave you.
Yeah. With the dough.
We're on the up and up, Vince. We got a good trade, and we're going to keep it good.
Mm-hmm.
So no monkey business from us.
Okay. No monkey business.
So I get the dough, and I'm on my way. I got one of my boys waiting around the corner. He's got the package of brown. I give him the high sign. He grabs some kid in the street. He asks him, you want to make an easy $5? Kid says, sure. My boy hands him the package and says, go give it to you. See?
Yeah, I see. You guys can't get stuck.
Well, that's why we do it that way, so we can't get stuck. Maybe one of my boys gets stuck every so often, but we make it worth his while.
What about the buyer, though? As soon as I take delivery, somebody can put his hands on my shoulder. I'm cooked. But they can't touch you.
Oh, we watch our stab. Customer in a can is one less customer. We like more customers, not less. Okay, come on.
Come on where?
To meet Pip. You can close with him.
Okay. Just let me finish my drink.
Captain Othniel.
Captain, I've reached Lieutenant Neary of the New York City detectives for you.
Oh, good. Put him on.
1 second. Go ahead. Hello?
Lieutenant, this is Captain Othniel, Narcotics Bureau, Treasury.
Yes, Captain?
We're working on a new angle on Pip the Blind. Could you make a meeting tonight on it?
Oh, sure thing.
And, Lieutenant, could you get hold of Rothman in the district attorney's office? I'd like him to be there, too.
I'll call him right away. Where's it to be? At your office?
No. I have a reason for wanting it away from here. Make it at the Spencer Hotel, room 1102, 1130.
Okay, I'll be there.
Good. And, this may take a long time, gentlemen. But I think if we have enough patience, we can work this thing right. We can nail them once and for all.
Well, are we going to work from the hotel here, Captain, instead of headquarters?
Guest loan for a while.
I see.
That suits me fine, Captain.
Yeah, it's all right with me.
The trouble in the past has been that Pip doesn't figure directly in any of the transactions. Because he hasn't been in on the buys, because he never handles any of the stuff personally, we haven't been able to stick him.
Well, if he stays out of the actual transfer of the narcotics, do you think we'll ever be able to stick him?
This works, we will. I'm lucky, too. These two men have been running wild long enough.
Well, Captain,
Yes?
Somebody on the fire escape. I'll get him.
Lieutenant.
I'll move you. Okay.
It's all right, Lieutenant. It's okay.
What's going on?
Come in, Purdy.
Excuse me, will you? Shut this thing. It's kind of chilly out there.
How'd it go?
Okay tonight, Captain. I met Pip.
Good work. Gentlemen, this is Agent Vincent Purdy of the San Francisco office.
What?
He's got the next room. We brought him here to work his way in and make a buy from Pip. He's the extraordinary measure I was telling you about. Lieutenant Neary of the New York detectives.
How are you?
Lieutenant?
Detective D'Angelo, Mr. Rothman of the New York District Attorney's Office, Agent Sloan, and Agent Oppenheimer, you know.
Glad to see you all.
Now, gentlemen, Agent Purdy is operating as Vince Porter, San Francisco narcotics wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Vince?
Well, Captain, I think we're going to have a hard time with Pip. Under no circumstances will he handle the goods.
That makes it awful tough.
The precautions they take in transferring the stuff make it almost impossible to secure the evidence we need. Now, I can get bolder if you'd like and make some suggestions to them, but that's liable to queer the whole deal.
No, we'll be all right as we're going. It'll take a lot of work and a lot of men to get us what we need. Vince has made a good connection. I think he's in a position where they trust him. Now, we stall for time.
So, Don, even with a Treasury agent working undercover as a San Francisco narcotics wholesaler, the law enforcement officers were having a difficult time making a case against Pip the Blind Galliano and Luigi Loiacano. But with the help of a broken leg and a delivery truck, the officers were soon able to get within range of what they sought.
San Francisco narcotic merchant had nearly completed arrangements to buy a quantity of illicit heroin from the syndicate headed by Joseph Galliano, known as Pip the Blind.
That's right, Don. A few minutes before the time set for the undercover agent's appointment, Pip was in his home on New York's Upper East Side, waiting for his lieutenant to show up with the new customer when the phone rang.
Hello?
Hello, Pip. Lucky.
Where are you? I thought you were bringing this Vince around.
He had an accident, Pip.
Accident? What kind of accident?
He broke his leg.
What?
Yeah. Fell down some steps in this hotel and chipped the bone. It's got a regular cast on it.
Well, if he thinks I'm going to him, he's crazy. I don't make deals in strange rooms.
It's not that bad, Pip. He's outside here in his car. He can drive all right. Doc says he just has to keep his weight off the leg.
Okay. Bring him around the house. I'll come out to his car. I'd like to take a look at that leg.
Hey, he's right here in the car. You can take a look at him.
Okay.
He says he can use plenty of the brown, Pip.
Okay. If everything looks all right, I'll feel him out on the price situation for this first 50 pieces. If we're tough now, we might save trouble later.
Yeah, this is it, Pip.
Hi, Vince.
Pip, get in.
Yeah. Just a second. Luggy, stand around on the sidewalk. Keep your eyes open.
Right, boss.
Careful. Watch his crutches there, will you?
Sorry to hear about your tough luck, Vince.
Well, accidents happen. Ain't so bad, except for this cast.
Well, let's get down to business.
That's what I'm here for. Can you deliver me 50 ounces of the brown stuff?
Sure, I can deliver. But not cheap.
What's not cheap?
$350 apiece.
$350? Look, we're not kids. I don't have to come to New York to buy a $350. At $350, I can buy all I want any place.
Then why don't you?
50 pieces, $300 apiece.
You heard my price.
Look, this 50 pieces is only the beginning. I'll buy plenty from a source at the right price.
$350's my price all over. Word gets around, I let it go for less. I'll be in a spot with the boys all over the country. I got other customers to think about.
Who's gonna know?
300's out of the question.
All right, I'll split the difference. 3 1/4.
Okay. It's a deal, Vince. 50 pieces at 3 1/4.
And look, Pip. No short waits. All pure stuff. I don't come back for more.
What do you take me for? I'm a businessman. You buy an ounce of heroin from me, you get an ounce of heroin, nothing else.
All right. I just want it understood.
It's understood without saying. I got a reputation. Luggy will make arrangements for the meet.
Okay.
Luggy.
Yeah, Pip. Everything okay?
50 pieces of brown at 3 1/4. Arrange with him for the meet.
Right.
See you around, Vince. So long.
Yeah. Get in, Luggy.
Yeah, you got a good price, Vince.
So I got a good price. I need the stuff quick. What about the meat?
Tomorrow night.
I need it tonight.
I can't get to the plane till tomorrow. You want the brown, you'll have to wait until tomorrow night.
I got a carrier leaving on a plane for Frisco tomorrow. These 50 pieces have got to go with them.
What time's the plane leave?
5:33 from LaGuardia.
Okay, we'll make the meet tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon? There'll be no meet in broad daylight. Not with me, they won't. What kind of a chump do you take me for?
I can't get my hands on the 50 pieces till the morning. You want the stuff on that plane, we'll change the meet in the afternoon.
That stinks.
Leave it to me. You won't be bothered.
And I got no choice.
Not if you want the goods on that plane, you haven't. How's 1 o'clock?
I guess it'll have to be okay.
85th and Amsterdam, southwest corner, 1 o'clock.
Okay, I'll see you.
50 pieces at 3 1/4. 50 at 3 would be 15 grand. 25 times 50, 12, 11 and a half. Comes to 16,250.
I'll have it.
Hey.
What?
Looks like a bad car there.
Where?
That panel truck that's been sitting there all the time.
Oh, that truck's from the Times. They're making deliveries. What do you think, the Times got to tie up with the government?
It's okay. Nobody saw anything that can hurt us.
All right, Luggy, I got to see the doc about my foot.
All right. 85th and Amsterdam. Southwest corner, 1 o'clock.
I'll be there.
So long.
Sloan?
Yeah?
All right, the switch is on. You can talk. Did you get it all?
Every word.
That ought to be good enough evidence to start Pip the Blind on his way to Leavenworth, huh?
You said it.
I'll pull around the corner and let you out of the trunk.
No, there's no sense taking a chance. I'm all right. I'm a little guy. I was made to order for a trunk. I've been more cramped at subways.
All right. I'll take the East Side Drive. We'll be at the Federal Building in 15 minutes.
That was good work, Vince. Never thought you'd get him to change the meat in daylight.
Well, I think it was Vince being against it that sold Luggy, Captain. Isn't that right, Vince?
Well, it'll be just our luck to have a dark and cloudy day tomorrow. We probably won't get any movies at all.
Any idea about the weather tomorrow, Lieutenant?
Yeah, I checked on it a little while ago. Warm and sunny. But you know how weather forecasts are.
Yeah, it's just as likely to come up cold and rainy.
Well, there's no sense worrying about the weather. This works out. We get movies of the entire transaction. The case will be that much tighter.
Supposing I get hold of the lieutenant in charge of the 22nd Squad, which covers that district. He'll help set up locations for the motion picture cameras.
Good idea, Lieutenant. We get upstairs in the buildings on 3 corners. We should be able to cover everything with telephoto lenses.
Yeah, we should.
In addition, I think we'll have 2 panel trucks with cameras. Both on the southwest corner. One on Amsterdam, one on 85th Street.
Captain, we'd better not use the Times truck again. Luggy was a little suspicious of it tonight.
Okay. We'll see if we can get one from the telephone company. Lieutenant.
Yes, sir?
Any detective you know can pose as a sign painter?
Yeah, I think there's a sergeant in the safe and loft squad. I'll see if I can get him a sign.
Good. We'll put him to work in the drugstore window, right on the corner. Maybe he can witness the transaction close up. And, I think we ought to have an agent as a street cleaner.
Okay, I'll arrange with the Department of Sanitation for the equipment.
What about me, Cap? Back into the trunk of the car?
Back into the trunk of the car. That makes you the best witness we've got.
Oh, my lumbago.
Now, about the money. We'll get you up $16,500 in marked bills, Vince.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important. We're not going to make any arrests on the scene. We'll let Luggy leave to meet Pip.
With the $16,500?
It's the only thing we can do. We'll be right behind him. As soon as he turns that money over to Pip, we step in and make the arrest. All right? Now let's all get lots of rest tonight. Tomorrow's a big day.
Okay, Sloan, hold on. It's the next corner.
I'm holding. Pray we don't get a flat.
Right. I see a parking place. There's our sign painter.
How about Luggy? Is he around?
I don't see him. There's the street cleaner, the telephone company truck. Here goes. Hold it, there's Luggy. Here he comes.
Hi, Vince. Get in the button.
Yeah, get in there. Watch the crutches, will you?
You got the bill?
Yeah. Put $16,500 in there.
A little more.
I'll peel off $250 and the rest is yours.
Okay.
50.
Careful.
150. 250. There you are.
Yeah. Thanks.
Is you going to count it?
Later, yeah. Nothing broad daylight. If it's short, you'll hear from us. Well, sit here a minute. You'll get your 50 pieces.
I'll see you. Sloan?
Yeah?
Get it all?
You bet.
There goes Luggy. I think he gave the signal to a guy in the corner. Yeah, he did. Guy's got a kid with him. He's giving the kid the goods. Here comes the kid, and there goes the guy. Rourke started out tailing the guy.
How about Luggy?
He's standing there watching the kid. I think they're getting good pictures of this. Hold it, here comes the kid. Yeah, what is it?
Hey, mister. Yalla, mister, they give me $1 to give you this package.
Okay.
Some kind of screwing on me. I can use $1.
All right, just drop the package on the seat.
Okay. There you are.
That's grand, kid.
Sure, okay. Well.
Well, Sloan, we got our baby. There goes Flynn after the boy. Now all we got to get is Pip the blind. Flat and no flat, here I go.
Now back to Gangbusters.
So like I was telling you, Pip, it all came off like clockwork. This guy Vince is going to make a good customer. He tells me he can use 100 pieces a month, no less.
Let's see the dough.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Just like he gave it to me.
Good. Hopefully, plenty isn't smaller.
A few 50s there. Quite many.
Well, this comes in handy. There's a boat in tomorrow. We get some more stuff off it.
Good.
It's going to take a lot to swing it.
Who's that?
I'm not expecting anybody. Here, Lucky. Put the dough under that cushion.
Right.
Okay, I'm coming. Yeah? Who is it?
Open up, Pep. Treasury agents.
Treasury agent. Listen, can't you guys leave me alone? You got nothing on me and you know it.
Oh, we'll see about that. Meantime, you'll take a ride downtown with us. Come on, men.
Hey, who's it? Listen, you got no business in here.
Haven't we? We've got a search warrant that says we have.
Hey, Pep, what's the matter?
Oh. You too, Luggy. Now listen to me, both of you. I know there's $16,000 in this house.
What, 16,000?
Money Luggy brought you not 15 minutes ago. Now, we know it's here. So you going to hand it over? Or do we have to tear the joint apart looking for it?
Okay, you win. Under the cushion on the couch. But it will take a lot more than a dough to stick me, copper, a lot more.
I know it, Pep. And this time we've got a lot more. Just you wait and see what we've got.
That, Don, was how agents of the Narcotics Bureau, Treasury Department, working with New York City authorities, brought these criminals to justice. And the case against them was one of the most completely convincing presentations of evidence ever used in a criminal action. After his conviction, Joseph Galliano, alias Pip the Blind, hanged himself in jail rather than face the long prison term he had coming. Angelo Loiacano, alias Luggy, and other members of the Combine are now serving maximum terms in Sing Sing and still face federal charges growing out of their operations.
Well, thank you, Assistant United States Attorney John C. Hilley, and congratulations to all the law enforcement officers who participated in the investigation. Tonight's case was dramatized by Stanley Niss and directed by William Sweet, with Mandel Kramer and Raymond Edward Johnson in leading roles. Don Gardner speaking. Gangbusters is a Phillips H. Lord production.
Proudly we hail. From New York City, where American stage begins, here is another program with a cast of standing players. Public service time has been made available by this station for your Army and your Air Force. Bring you this story. Proudly we hail Paul Revere. To Glory, and it's a true story about the life of Paul Revere. The tale ends with his famous midnight ride on April the 18th, 1775, to warn the colonists that the British were on the march. Our first act curtain will rise in just a moment, but first...
Have you noticed the new trim wax uniform worn by the young women who are serving in the Women's Army Corps? This new uniform not only stamps the wearer as being smartly dressed, it also indicates that she is doing her part to keep America strong. If you are a young woman between 18 and 34 and can qualify, you are urged to do your part in making unity, strength, freedom a reality. Go to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station and enlist in the Women's Army Corps today.
And now your Army and your Air Force present the Proudly We Hail production, Ride to Glory. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
When the poet first told that simple story to his 3 daughters to amuse them, he was right about only one thing. He was right when he said that hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. Of course, Mr. Longfellow's poetic setting did a lot to see that the story of Paul Revere's ride sank into the minds of school children for generations. But wouldn't the story of that ride, and more important, the story of Paul Revere and the Boston of his day, be remembered anyway? Paul Revere was 40 years old when he went on that famous ride to Lexington. His father was a French immigrant who had been apprenticed to a goldsmith. His mother was a member of one of the most prominent Boston families. Paul was the second child, born on the last day of the year 1734. Since it was the custom to baptize the child the day after his birth, Paul made his first trip out into the world on New Year's Day. The midwife carried him, and when they got home, the woman, Paul's father, and the godparents, his mother was lying in bed in the living room with relatives and friends gathered around to celebrate the great occasion of the first son. The room was crowded and noisy with the celebration.
Oh, well, here, Paul, let me take your coat. Oh, you take this hot glass of port.
I'll take the baby to Deborah. Yes, let me have him. Oh, Paul, tell me all about it.
All I can remember of it right now, before I have my port, is that it was cold.
Oh, you must remember. Oh, I knew I should have gone myself. But I remember every bit of it. Mr. Wellseed may be young, but he's a fine, reverent man. He didn't allow the cold to hurry it.
Yeah, he certainly didn't.
Oh, hush, Paul, let us tell it. Well, I held the baby while Mr. Revere and the minister broke the ice in the baptismal font. I was so afraid the poor child would sleep all through it.
Sleep? When that icy water hit his face, he set up a howl I'm surprised you didn't hear.
And you called him Paul?
Yes, my love, I called him Paul.
Paul's growing up was probably fun. His father had a well-established trade as a goldsmith, even though he worked with silver most of the time. Paul's brothers and sisters crowded the little house, but there was lots more time to play than we usually think the children of our forebears had. What could be more exciting than the wharves of Boston, with ships from England and France and the West Indies arriving with their strange and wonderful cargoes? The city was young, and it was growing rich, and Bostonians thought then, as they probably do now, that it was the greatest city on earth.
Where is Paul, Deborah?
Probably out on the wharves. He said something about a ship arriving today. He and some of his friends were going down to see if they could maybe get a job helping to unload.
Oh, good. Yes, that's good. The boy has ambition. But I think he might stay home now that he's getting bigger and learn my trade. I'm not going to live forever, you know, and he can't grow up without a trade.
Paul, dear, that reminds me of something I wanted to talk to you about. There never seems to be the time.
Your days and half your nights are filled working for me and our children. There is never enough time for you.
Oh, that. What does that matter? They're all healthy and happy, aren't they? No, what I meant was that for Paul, don't you think you could send him to the Boston Latin School next year?
The Latin School? Woman, you must have taken leave of your senses. I'm not a rich man. I'm an artisan, a man who works with his hands. What would Paul be doing learning Latin with rich men's sons?
I just thought, I don't know. I guess the mother wants everything the best for her first son.
Deborah, I don't understand you. You work with your hands, you sew and make beautiful things for the table. Don't you realize that working with your hands can be wonderful and satisfying?
Yes, of course I do, Paul. But, maybe it's just a dream.
Oh, wait. Here's the boy now. Let him tell us what he would like.
Good afternoon, Mother. Father.
Oh, your hands are freezing, Paul. Didn't you wear your mittens?
Well, I couldn't work with them on, Mother. No matter. My hands will be warm in a minute.
So you found work this afternoon, eh?
Yes, Father. We got $1 apiece for helping to unload a ship. It was a ship from the Indies.
Uh-huh.
Seemed as if almost everyone in Boston was down to see it unloaded.
Does it give you an urge to go to sea?
Oh, Paul, no.
Oh, don't worry, Mother. Maybe someday I would like to cross the ocean, but I wouldn't want to be a sailor.
Not from what the men on the ship tell me. I'd rather stay right here in Boston.
Paul, your mother and I were just talking of your future. Your mother seems to think that maybe it would be a good thing if you went to the Latin school next year.
The Latin school? What for? None of my friends would be there. I'm not going to Harvard like the Adams boys or the Hutchinson boys.
Well, what are you going to do, Paul?
Well, just what every other boy like me will do. I suppose I'll go to school and learn to write clearly and to read a bit, figure, and then I'll learn my father's trade.
Ah, good.
And then? What then, Paul?
What then? Well, nothing then. Then I shall live in Boston for the rest of my life.
Live in Boston for the rest of his life. As simple as that to young Paul Revere. Well, he went to school, and he learned to write and read a bit and figure. And he learned his father's trade, working with his father as the Bostonians of the 1740s came into the little shop.
Mr. Revere! Oh, you must help me.
Now. Calm yourself. You're the maid from the big Hutchinson house, aren't you?
Yes, sir. And I need your help so badly.
Oh, sit yourself down here and tell me what your trouble is, huh? After you get your breath.
This is what the trouble is.
Oh, my, that's a fine silver cup. Or, used to be. I remember I made it myself 5 years ago for the second, the third daughter. Frances was her name, I believe.
Yes, Frances. I was melting a little butter in it. Oh, I know I shouldn't have done it, and it all sort of gummed up together like this.
And you would like me to, ungum it?
If you could, Mr. Revere. I could pay you a little bit each week till it's right.
Oh, we'll fix it for you. My son Paul here can do it, and it won't cost you a farthing. It's worth our trouble in the experience Paul will get. But promise me this, that you will never put silver over an open fire again.
Oh, I won't, Mr. Revere. I swear I won't. I just did it because I was in a hurry to melt some butter for Mrs. Hutchinson's hot milk. Hot milk? Oh!
Now what is it?
Oh, I must run. Now I've left the milk on the fire, and I'll be boiled away.
Paul Revere was only 19 when his father died, but that was old enough in those days for a youth to be a man, and to take over as head of the household. The household was an extensive one. Paul's mother, the oldest child, Deborah, a grown woman of 22, not yet married, Paul, 19, and Frances a year younger, and then Thomas, who would be a silversmith like Paul and John. Two little girls of 12 and 13, Mary and Betty, made up the rest of this brood that Paul would now have to support. He worked hard, and the rich merchants and ship owners spent like kings in those days when their trade, largely with the Indies, was good. Paul could often pay the rent by the work of his own hands, a thimble for the wife of the landlord or rings for the daughters. Long before Paul was born, and for 30 years afterwards, one French war followed another so fast there were few intervals of peace. Forays of French and Indians struck down into the heart of New England. Again and again, the infuriated New Englanders, sometimes with the support of the other English colonies and the mother country, and sometimes without, carried the offensive against the strongholds of the French. Over here, there were many names for this struggle. King William's War, Queen Anne's, King George's, the Old French War, and the final phase best known as the 7 Years' War. The sum total of them all is the French and Indian Wars. Paul Revere felt these rumblings strongly, and 2 years after his father died, turned his domestic responsibilities over to his brothers, and went to war.
But, Paul, why must you go? You have responsibilities. You have a home to keep together.
And what man who goes to war doesn't have responsibilities? What soldier doesn't have a home?
You're so young, Paul.
They need young men, Mother. But it's very simple. Colonel Washington was in Boston yesterday. He's that young Virginia colonel who took over when General Braddock was killed?
Yes, the shops were buzzing with news of his arrival.
Yes. Well, it's been decided that this summer's attack should be against the French-held forts of Crown Point and Ticonderoga.
But that's so far away.
Mother, you don't understand.
But,
You see, Massachusetts is exposed to massacre from Canada as long as the French hold these forts.
Well,
Now, the Massachusetts General Court has authorized the raising of 3,500 men.
30.
Mother, it won't be hard to find that many of us who will fight to save our own homes.
And to you, Paul Revere, I give this commission as second lieutenant in the artillery train, because it has been deemed that your courage, loyalty, and conduct deserve special trust.
You are listening to the proudly we hail production of Bride to Glory. We'll return to our story in just a moment.
Here's an opportunity for you young women of America, an opportunity to get in step with the smartest. Today, the rapidly expanding Women's Army Corps, proud newcomer on the team of defense, needs qualified young women between the ages of 18 and 34. This is your chance to do an important job. The pay is good with excellent prospect of rapid advancement. Why not check with your local United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station today? You'll find that it's easy to get in step with these proud American women who are serving their country in the Women's Army Corps.
You are listening to Proudly We Hail. And now we present the second act of Ride to Glory.
Paul Revere, like the others, was enlisted for not more than 1 year. He was issued a lamp kettle, a bowl, a platter, and 2 spoons. He brought his gun with him, so he was given a bounty. But his powder horn, bullet pouch, blanket, and knapsack were supplied by the colony. In those days, men had no bayonets, but carried hatchets in their belts. Their uniforms, that is, when they had any, were blue coats with either blue or scarlet breeches. The wages, as they called it, was £1 6 shillings a month for a private. But Paul, as an artillery lieutenant, got £5 6 and 8. This was pretty good money. Paul's house and shop rent was only £16 a year. The noises of Boston must have sounded wonderful to Paul Revere when his little band of thin, battle-weary troops marched back into Boston. The shouting of the stevedores at the wharves must have sounded warm and friendly after the cold mountains of the north. The calls of the little chimney sweeps.
Sleep! Oh, sleep! Sleep, your chimney!
Or the fish peddlers with their tin horns.
French cod, haddock, mackerel, come in the morning at the head of the ferryway.
And the watch by night. The first night Paul slept in his own bed again.
12:30 and a fine, clear morning.
But after Paul had settled down again and married Sari Orne, Boston started to hear other sounds. The rumblings of trouble.
Quebec has fallen. The wars are over. Why does England keep 10,000 men over here?
Old England sends 10,000 men here, and New England keeps them.
If the king wants to search my ships, let him come himself and do it. I won't submit to any other customs collector.
I know nothing about such things, but I heard John say that in 30 or 50 years, the colonies might be able to form a state by themselves, entirely independent of Old England.
Have you heard? Old Thomas Hancock died and left all his estate to that adopted nephew of his, John Hancock.
Yeah, and from what I hear, that money will be used for the plots of the Sons of Liberty. Young John Hancock and Sam Adams are as thick as bees in a hive.
You're right. The Whig party has had brains, organization, manpower, enthusiasm, but they've lacked cash. Now Sam Adams will write the letters and John Hancock will pay the postage.
Paul Revere heard these rumblings, heard them in the many clubs he belonged to. In a day when class lines were strictly drawn, he was a curious person. He was extremely popular with his own class, the workmen and artisans, and he was popular with the upper class of Boston. Some say that Sam Adams took advantage of Paul's popularity and got him into exclusive clubs so that the Whig party would have liaison with the artisans. A hard-headed bunch to convince, much harder to rouse than the dock workers or even the farmers. Well, whatever the reason, Paul was in from the beginning.
I don't feel... No. Gentlemen.
Go on, Sam. We're listening.
Now, maybe some of the men of Boston think we should be complacent. After all, the Stamp Act was repealed, and we have the custom officer's word that our ships will not be searched.
His word? Since when is the word of Parliament to be trusted?
That's correct. And what was the Stamp Act compared with this new tyranny, the Townsend Act?
It's like someone said in Philadelphia some weeks ago. Taxation without representation is tyranny.
Gentlemen, what are we arguing about? We're all in agreement. Now let's go home and get some sleep. And remember, not a word, not even to your wives or your mothers, about our little tea party for tomorrow. Oh, Paul Revere, can you stay a moment?
Why, certainly, Sam.
Let's close the door. I trust few men these days.
Glass of ale, Paul? Oh, no, thank you.
Well, it's just as well. You will serve us better if the inns along your route hold no attraction for you.
The inns along my route? I fail to understand you, Sam.
Well, it's part of a plan I've had for some time, Paul. It is imperative that we all hang together, or, as John said the other day, we'll all hang separately.
But aren't we together? The men here tonight prove that.
We are here in Boston, and the patriots in Philadelphia are united, and those in New York. But what we need now is for all the patriots, everywhere in the colonies, as far away as Virginia, to be united.
But how can that be done?
By informing each other of our moves and our plans. We must know what's going on in Philadelphia, and they must know what's going on in Boston.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow, when we dump the British tea into the Charles River, there will be serious repercussions in Boston. The British will probably demand payment for the tea. Boston will be placed in siege. The help of the other patriots everywhere will be needed so that we won't have to give in to hunger.
Yes, I understand all that, Sam. Hadn't thought of it, but makes good sense when you say it. But where do I come into these plans?
I want you to help me organize committees of correspondence.
Me?
You and William Dawes are the best riders in Boston, and you have horses.
Yes.
We will need at least a half-dozen fast riders who can be trusted implicitly to carry news to the other colonies.
I see.
We will need men who are fearless and who love liberty.
I'm flattered by what you say, Sam, but I'm a little confused.
It's really quite simple. There should be no trouble in setting up these committees of correspondence. You will have to arrange to have fresh horses stationed along the route.
No, I don't mean that, Sam. I agree it'll be an easy matter to organize once we find the right men. Now, what I'm confused about is, where will it all end? What are we destined for?
Well, that troubles us all, my friend. Where it will end is something that makes us shudder at night sometimes. It might mean war, with brother pitted against brother. Now, this is a horrible responsibility for us who are stirring up resentment against tyranny. But whatever we're destined for, maybe even ignominious defeat, we must believe in what we're doing. You and I do, Paul, and a great many other sons of liberty. Perhaps, although it sounds pompous and conceited, perhaps we're even destined for greatness.
The Boston Tea Party, planned by Sam Adams and carried out by the Sons of Liberty, brought things to a head in that stronghold of the Revolution. Paul Revere rode that night to give the news to Lexington and New York. The news that 342 chests of tea, valued at 18,000 pounds, had been dumped into the water. Boston was put under military rule. The town fathers refused to pay the bill, and the redcoats had orders to stay until the bill was paid. The other colonies smuggled in food and money for the besieged Bostonians. The committees of correspondence began functioning, with Paul Revere and William Dawes riding out of Boston as far away as Philadelphia, averaging 65 miles a day, to spread the news of the 10,000 troops that were filling Boston homes and marching through Boston streets. Yes, Boston had trouble those 2 years, but so did the British troops. General Gage even had trouble with his officers.
But I tell you, gentlemen, there is no point in stirring up more resentment with these people.
Stirring up resentment? Who cares about these rebels? What about your own men?
He's right, General. These men have been stationed in these cramped streets for 2 years.
You know yourself that they're deserting by the dozen. Every single day we have nothing for them to do.
An army has to march. These men are fighters. They are not content to huddle together in this compound with nothing to do and nobody who will even speak to them.
What would you have me do? Turn them loose and let them shoot up and down the countryside?
Their work and ours is cut out for them. You know well that the rebels have been storing up arms and ammunition. They're stealing it from us, and they're manufacturing it. Our spies have told us where much of it is hidden.
It waits there for us to march in and take it. We'll burn their powder factories and take their muskets away from them. Maybe then they'll learn that you can't make fools of the British Army.
I suppose everything you say is true.
Of course it is. Our course is clear.
Perhaps I will go down in history as one of the most cowardly, procrastinating generals the British Army ever had. But, gentlemen, I think you, and, yes, Parliament too, underrate these rebels. I believe they mean to gain their freedom, and what we do will antagonize them and unite them as our inaction never will.
These people don't know what they want, but we all know what our troops want. Let's give it to them. Give them some action.
It's a difficult decision to make, gentlemen. A decision that might mean a total war. But I respect your judgment of our men. Very well. We'll investigate this report of the biggest hidden store of arms and powder. We leave for Lexington in 3 days.
I've called you here, Paul, and you, Dawes, to ask you if you can forget everything else for a few weeks and work for the colonies exclusively.
You mean because of the British maneuvers?
Oh, then you've heard about it, too.
Everybody in Boston seems to know about it. The troops are billeted in our houses. It's simple to see they're getting new equipment and training for a march.
Yes, even my son told me that one of the soldiers who's having a ring made wouldn't be able to get it until he got back from that march.
Fools. Well, we have found out that they're going to Lexington.
Yeah? Then Lexington must be warned.
Yes, Dawes, Lexington and all the rest of the colonies. Now, you and Paul will carry the news to Lexington and Concord.
Shall we go on to New York and Philadelphia?
No. Let another member of the committee go on to New York, and then a New York member go on to Philadelphia. Tell the riders to return to their own towns for the next assignment as soon as they can.
Sam, how are the British going to Lexington?
Well, we haven't been able to find that out as yet. Perhaps we won't know until the last minute. They may march from here. They may go up the river. That's why I want you two here.
I see.
If we don't find out until they start, and I assume they'll start after dark, then you two will have to ride through the night and warn the farmers and the villagers and the townspeople.
We'll warn them, Sam. And they'll stand and fight if necessary.
May God ride with you, Paul.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. 1, if by land, and 2, if by sea. And I, on the opposite shore, will be ready to ride and spread the alarm to every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm. And lo, as he looks on the belfry height, a glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hooves in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath, from the pebbles in passing, a spark, struck out by a steed flying, fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet, through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night, and the spark struck out by that steed in his flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night with his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore, for born on the night wind of the past, through all our history, to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere.
Young woman, how about your future? Does it include an interesting and important job? A job that will take you to the exciting places of the world, places where tomorrow's history is being made today? Right now, young women like yourself are urgently needed to serve their country in the Women's Army Corps. Here's your opportunity to secure your future. Go to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station and get all the facts today.
This has been another program on Proudly We Hail, presented transcribed in cooperation with this station by the United States Army and United States Air Force Recruiting Service. This program featured a cast of outstanding players. This is Kenneth Banghart speaking and inviting you to tune in the same station next week for another interesting story on Proudly We Hail. Proudly We Hail. From New York City, where American stage begins, here is another program with a cast of standing players. Public service time has been made available by this station for your Army and your Air Force. Bring you this story. Proudly we hail Paul Revere. Our story is entitled To Glory, and it's a true story about the life of Paul Revere. The tale ends with his famous midnight ride on April the 18th, 1775, to warn the colonists that the British were on the march. Our first act curtain will rise in just a moment, but first...
Have you noticed the new trim whack uniform worn by the young women who are serving in the Women's Army Corps? This new uniform not only stamps the wearer as being smartly dressed, it also indicates that she is doing her part to keep America strong. If you are a young woman between 18 and 34 and can qualify, you are urged to do your part in making unity, strength, freedom a reality. Go to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station and enlist in the Women's Army Corps today.
And now your Army and your Air Force present the Proudly We Hail production, Ride to Glory. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year.
When the poet first told that simple story to his 3 daughters to amuse them, he was right about only one thing. He was right when he said that hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. Of course, Mr. Longfellow's poetic setting did a lot to see that the story of Paul Revere's ride sank into the minds of school children for generations. But wouldn't the story of that ride, and more important, the story of Paul Revere and the Boston of his day, be remembered anyway? Paul Revere was 40 years old when he went on that famous ride to Lexington. His father was a French immigrant who had been apprenticed to a goldsmith. His mother was a member of one of the most prominent Boston families. Paul was the second child, born on the last day of the year 1734. Since it was the custom to baptize the child the day after his birth, Paul made his first trip out into the world on New Year's Day. The midwife carried him, and when they got home, the woman, Paul's father, and the godparents, his mother was lying in bed in the living room, with relatives and friends gathered around to celebrate the great occasion of the first son. The room was crowded and noisy with the celebration.
Oh, well, let's begin. Here, Paul, let me take your coat. Oh, you take this hot glass of port.
I'll take the baby to Deborah.
Yes, let me have him. Oh, Paul, tell me all about it.
All I can remember of it right now, before I have my port, is that it was cold.
Oh, you must remember. Oh, I knew I should have gone myself.
But I remember every bit of it. Mr. Wellseed may be young, but he's a fine, reverent man. He didn't allow the cold to hurry it.
Yeah, he certainly didn't.
Oh, hush, Paul, let us tell it.
Well, I held the baby while Mr. Revere and the minister broke the ice in the baptismal font. I was so afraid the poor child would sleep all through it.
Sleep? When that icy water hit his face, he set up a howl I'm surprised you didn't hear.
And you called him Paul?
Yes, my love, I called him Paul.
Paul's growing up was probably fun. His father had a well-established trade as a goldsmith. Goldsmith, even though he worked with silver most of the time. Paul's brothers and sisters crowded the little house, but there was lots more time to play than we usually think the children of our forebears had. What could be more exciting than the wharves of Boston, with ships from England and France and the West Indies arriving with their strange and wonderful cargoes? The city was young, and it was growing rich, and Bostonians thought then, as they probably do now, that it was the greatest city on earth.
Where is Paul, Deborah?
Probably out on the wharves. He said something about a ship arriving today. He and some of his friends were going down to see if they could maybe get a job helping to unload.
Oh, good. Yes, that's good. The boy has ambition. But I think he might stay home now that he's getting bigger and learn my trade. I'm not going to live forever, you know, and he can't grow up without a trade.
Paul, dear, that reminds me of something I wanted to talk to you about. There never seems to be the time.
Your days and half your nights are filled working for me and our children. There is never enough time for you.
Oh, that. What does that matter? They're all healthy and happy, aren't they? No, what I meant was that for Paul, don't you think you could send him to the Boston Latin School next year?
The Latin School? Woman, you must have taken leave of your senses. I'm not a rich man. I'm an artisan, a man who works with his hands. What would Paul be doing learning Latin with rich men's sons?
I just thought... Oh, I don't know. I guess the mother wants everything the best for her first son.
Deborah, I don't understand you. You work with your hands. You sew and make beautiful things for the table. Don't you realize that working with your hands can be wonderful and satisfying?
Yes, of course I do, Paul. But, maybe it's just a dream.
Oh, wait. Here's the boy now. Let him tell us what he would like, huh?
Good afternoon, Mother. Father.
Oh, your hands are freezing, Paul. Didn't you wear your mittens?
Well, I couldn't work with them on, Mother. No matter. My hands will be warm in a minute.
So you found work this afternoon, eh?
Yes, Father. We got a shilling apiece for helping to unload a ship. It was a ship from the Indies.
Uh-huh.
Seemed as if almost everyone in Boston was down to see it unloaded.
Does it give you an urge to go to sea?
Oh, Paul, no. Oh, don't worry, Mother. Maybe someday I would like to cross the ocean, but I wouldn't want to be a sailor. Not from what the men on the ship tell me. I'd rather stay right here in Boston.
Paul, your mother and I were just talking of your future. Your mother seems to think that Maybe it would be a good thing if you went to the Latin school next year.
The Latin school? What for? None of my friends would be there. I'm not going to Harvard like the Adams boys or the Hutchinson boys.
Well, what are you going to do, Paul?
Well, just what every other boy like me will do. I suppose I'll go to school and learn to write clearly and to read a bit, figure, and then I'll learn my father's trade.
Ah, good.
And then? What then, Paul?
What then? Well, nothing then. Then I shall live in Boston for the rest of my life.
Live in Boston for the rest of his life. As simple as that to young Paul Revere. Well, he went to school, and he learned to write and read a bit and figure. And he learned his father's trade, working with his father as the Bostonians of the 1740s came into the little shop.
Mr. Revere! Oh, you must help me.
No. Calm yourself. You're the maid from the big Hutchinson house, aren't you?
Yes, sir. And I need your help so badly.
Oh, sit yourself down here and tell me what your trouble is, huh? After you get your breath.
This is what the trouble is.
Oh, my, that's a fine silver cup. Or, used to be. I remember I made it myself 5 years ago for the second, the third daughter. Frances was her name, I believe.
Yes, Frances. I was melting a little butter in it. Oh, I know I shouldn't have done it, and it all sort of gummed up together like this.
And you would like me to, ungum it?
If you could, Mr. Revere. I could pay you a little bit each week till it's right.
Oh, we'll fix it for you. My son Paul here can do it, and it won't cost you a farthing. It's worth our trouble in the experience Paul will get. But promise me this, that you will never put silver over an open fire again.
Oh, I won't, Mr. Revere. I swear I won't. I just did it because I was in a hurry to melt some butter from Mrs. Hutchinson's hot milk. Hot milk? Oh!
Now what is it?
Oh, I must run. Now I've left the milk on the fire, and I'll be boiled away.
Paul Revere was only 19 when his father died, but that was old enough in those days for a youth to be a man, and to take over as head of the household. The household was an extensive one. Paul's mother, the oldest child, Deborah, a grown woman of 22, not yet married, Paul, 19, and Frances a year younger, and then Thomas, who would be a silversmith like Paul and John. 2 little girls of 12 and 13, Mary and Betty, made up the rest of this brood that Paul would now have to support. He worked hard, and the rich merchants and ship owners spent like kings in those days when their trade, largely with the Indies, was good. Paul could often pay the rent by the work of his own hands, a thimble for the wife of the landlord or rings for the daughters. Long before Paul was born, and for 30 years afterwards, one French war followed another so fast there were few intervals of peace. Forays of French and Indians struck down into the heart of New England. Again and again, the infuriated New Englanders, sometimes with the support of the other English colonies and the mother country, and sometimes without, carried the offensive against the strongholds of the French. Over here, there were many names for this struggle. King William's War, Queen Anne's, King George's, the Old French War, and the final phase best known as the 7 Years' War. The sum total of them all is the French and Indian Wars. Paul Revere felt these rumblings strongly, and 2 years after his father died, turned his domestic responsibilities over to his brothers and went to war.
But, Paul, why must you go? You have responsibilities. You have a home to keep together.
And what man who goes to war doesn't have responsibilities? What soldier doesn't have a home?
You're so young, Paul.
Well, they need young men, Mother. But it's very simple. Colonel Washington was in Boston yesterday. He's that young Virginia colonel who took over when General Braddock was killed?
Yes, the shops were buzzing with news of his arrival.
Yes. Well, it's been decided that this summer's attack should be against the French-held forts of Crown Point and Ticonderoga.
But that's so far away.
Mother, you don't understand.
But,
You see, Massachusetts is exposed to massacre from Canada as long as the French hold these forts.
Well,
Now, the Massachusetts General Court has authorized the raising of 3,500 men.
30.
Mother, it won't be hard to find that many of us who will fight to save our own homes.
to you, Paul Revere, I give this commission as second lieutenant in the artillery train, because it has been deemed that your courage, loyalty, and conduct deserve special trust.
You are listening to the proudly we hail production of Ride to Glory. We'll return to our story in just a moment.
Here's an opportunity for you young women of America, an opportunity to get in step with the smartest. Today, the rapidly expanding Women's Army Corps, proud newcomer on the team of defense, needs qualified young women between the ages of 18 and 34. This is your chance to do an important job. The pay is good with excellent prospect of rapid advancement. Why not check with your local United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station today? You'll find that it's easy to get in step with these proud American women who are serving their country in the Women's Army Corps.
You are listening to Proudly We Hail. And now we present the second act of Ride to Glory.
Paul Revere, like the others, was enlisted for not more than 1 year. He was issued a lamp kettle, a bowl, a platter, and 2 spoons. He brought his gun with him, so he was given a bounty. But his powder horn, bullet pouch, blanket, and knapsack were supplied by the colonists. In those days, men had no bayonets, but carried hatchets in their belts. Their uniforms, that is, when they had any, were blue coats with either blue or scarlet breeches. The wages, as they called it, was £1 6 shillings a month for a private. But Paul, as an artillery lieutenant, got £5 6 and 8. This was pretty good money. Paul's house and shop rent was only £16 a year. The noises of Boston must have sounded wonderful to Paul Revere when his little band of thin, battle-weary troops marched back into Boston. The shouting of the stevedores at the wharves must have sounded warm and friendly after the cold mountains of the north. The calls of the little chimney sweeps.
Sweep! Oh, sweep! Sweep your chimney!
Or the fish peddlers with their tin horns.
French cod, haddock, mackerel, come in the morning at the head of the ferryway.
And the watch by night. The first night Paul slept in his own bed again.
12:30 and a fine, clear morning.
But after Paul had settled down again and married Sari Orne, Boston started to hear other sounds, the rumblings of trouble.
Quebec has fallen, the wars are over. Why does England keep 10,000 men over here?
Old England sends 10,000 men here, and New England keeps them.
If the king wants to search my ships, let him come himself and do it. I won't submit to any other customs collector.
I know nothing about such things, but I heard John say that in 30 or 50 years, the colonies might be able to form a state by themselves, entirely independent of Old England.
Have you heard? Old Thomas Hancock died and left all his estate to that adopted nephew of his, John Hancock.
Yeah, and from what I hear, that money will be used for the plots of the Sons of Liberty. Young John Hancock and Sam Adams are as thick as bees in a hive.
You're right. The Whig parties had brains, organization, manpower, enthusiasm, but they lacked cash. Now Sam Adams will write the letters and John Hancock will pay the postage.
Paul Revere heard these rumblings, heard them in the many clubs he belonged to. In a day when class lines were strictly drawn, he was a curious person. He was extremely popular with his own class, the workmen and artisans, and he was popular with the upper class of Boston. Some say that Sam Adams took advantage of Paul's popularity and got him into exclusive clubs so that the Whig Party would have liaison with the artisans. A hard-headed bunch to convince, much harder to rouse than the dock workers or even the farmers. Well, whatever the reason, Paul was in from the beginning.
I don't do. No. Gentlemen.
Go on, Sam. We're listening.
Now, maybe some of the men of Boston think we should be complacent. After all, the Stamp Act was repealed, and we have the custom officer's word that our ships will not be searched.
His word? Since when is the word of Parliament to be trusted?
That's correct.
And what was the Stamp Act compared with this new tyranny, the Townsend Act?
It's like someone said in Philadelphia some weeks ago. Taxation without representation is tyranny.
Gentlemen, what are we arguing about? We're all in agreement. Now let's go home and get some sleep. And remember, not a word, not even to your wives or your mothers, about our little tea party for tomorrow. Oh, Paul Revere, can you stay a moment?
Why, certainly, Sam.
Let's close the door. I trust few men these days. Glass of ale, Paul?
Oh, no, thank you.
Well, it's just as well. You will serve us better if the inns along your route hold no attraction for you.
The inn's along my route. I fail to understand you, Sam.
Well, it's part of a plan I've had for some time, Paul. It is imperative that we all hang together, or, as John said the other day, we'll all hang separately.
But aren't we together? The men here tonight proved that.
We are here in Boston, and the patriots in Philadelphia are united, and those in New York. But what we need now is for all the patriots, everywhere in the colonies, as far away as Virginia, to be united.
But how can that be done?
By informing each other of our moves and our plans. We must know what's going on in Philadelphia, and they must know what's going on in Boston.
Oh, yes.
Tomorrow, when we dump the British tea into the Charles River, there will be serious repercussions in Boston.
Yes.
The British will probably demand payment for the tea. Boston will be placed in siege. The help of the other patriots everywhere will be needed so that we won't have to give in to hunger.
Yes, I understand all that, Sam. Hadn't thought of it, but makes good sense when you say it. But where do I come into these plans?
I want you to help me organize committees of correspondence.
Me?
You and William Dawes are the best riders in Boston, and you have horses.
Yes.
We will need at least a half-dozen fast riders who can be trusted implicitly to carry news to the other colonies.
I see.
We will need men who are fearless and who love liberty.
I'm flattered by what you say, Sam, but I'm a little confused.
It's really quite simple. There should be no trouble in setting up these committees of correspondence. You will have to arrange to have fresh horses stationed along the route.
No, I don't mean that, Sam. I agree it'll be an easy matter to organize once we find the right men. Now, what I'm confused about is, where will it all end? What are we destined for?
Well, that troubles us all, my friend. Where it will end is something that makes us shudder at night sometimes. It might mean war, with brother pitted against brother. Now, this is a horrible responsibility for us who are stirring up resentment against tyranny. But whatever we're destined for, maybe even ignominious defeat, we must believe in what we're doing. You and I do, Paul, and a great many other sons of liberty. Perhaps, although it sounds pompous and conceited, perhaps we're even destined for greatness.
The Boston Tea Party, planned by Sam Adams and carried out by the Sons of Liberty, brought things to a head in that stronghold of the Revolution. Paul Revere rode that night to give the news to Lexington and New York. The news that 342 chests of tea, valued at 18,000 pounds, had been dumped into the water. Boston was put under military rule. The town fathers refused to pay the bill, and the redcoats had orders to stay until the bill was paid. The other colonies smuggled in food and money for the besieged Bostonians. The committees of correspondence began functioning, with Paul Revere and William Dawes riding out of Boston as far away as Philadelphia, averaging 65 miles a day, to spread the news of the 10,000 troops that were filling Boston homes and marching through Boston streets. Yes, Boston had trouble those 2 years, but so did the British troops. General Gage even had trouble with his officers.
But I tell you, gentlemen, there is no point in stirring up more resentment with these people.
Stirring up resentment? Who cares about these rebels? What about your own men?
He's right, General. These men have been stationed in these cramped streets for 2 years. You know yourself that they're deserting by the dozen. Every single day we have nothing for them to do.
An army has to march. These men are fighters. They are not content to huddle together in this compound with nothing to do and nobody who will even speak to them.
What would you have me do? Turn them loose and let them shoot up and down the countryside?
Their work and ours is cut out for them. You know well that the rebels have been storing up arms and ammunition. They're stealing it from us, and they're manufacturing it. Our spies have told us where much of it is hidden.
It waits there for us to march in and take it. We'll burn their powder factories and take their muskets away from them. Maybe then they'll learn that you can't make fools of the British Army.
I suppose everything you say is true.
Of course it is. Our course is clear.
Perhaps I will go down in history as one of the most cowardly, procrastinating generals the British Army ever had. But, gentlemen, I think you and, yes, Parliament too, underrate these rebels. I believe they mean to gain their freedom, and what we do will antagonize them and unite them as our inaction never will.
These people don't know what they want, but we all know what our troops want. Let's give it to them. Give them some action.
It's a difficult decision to make, gentlemen. A decision that might mean a total war. But I respect your judgment of our men. Very well. We'll investigate this report of the biggest hidden store of arms and powder. We leave for Lexington in 3 days.
I've called you here, Paul, and you, Dawes, to ask you if you can forget everything else for a few weeks and work for the colonies exclusively.
You mean because of the British maneuvers?
Oh, then you've heard about it, too.
Everybody in Boston seems to know about it. The troops are billeted in our houses. It's simple to see they're getting new equipment and training for a march.
Yes, even my son told me that one of the soldiers who's having a ring made wouldn't be able to get it until he got back from that march.
The fools. Well, we have found out that they're going to Lexington.
Yeah? Then Lexington must be warned.
Yes, Dawes, Lexington and all the rest of the colonies. Now, you and Paul will carry the news to Lexington and Concord.
Shall we go on to New York and Philadelphia?
No. Let another member of the committee go on to New York, and then a New York member go on to Philadelphia. Tell the riders to return to their own towns for the next assignment as soon as they can.
Sam, how are the British going to Lexington?
Well, we haven't been able to find that out as yet. Perhaps we won't know until the last minute. They may march from here. They may go up the river. That's why I want you two here.
I see.
If we don't find out until they start, and I assume they'll start after dark, then you two will have to ride through the night and warn the farmers and the villagers and the townspeople.
We'll warn them, Sam. And they'll stand and fight if necessary.
May God ride with you, Paul.
Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, "If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. 1, if by land, and 2, if by sea. And I, on the opposite shore, will be ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm." And lo, as he looks on the belfry heights, a glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hooves in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, a bulk in the dark, and beneath, from the pebbles in passing, a spark, struck out by a steed flying, fearless and fleet. That was all, and yet, through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night, and the spark struck out by that steed in his flight kindled the land into flame with its heat. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night with his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore, for borne on the night wind of the past, through all our history, to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril at need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere.
Young woman, how about your future? Does it include an interesting and important job? A job that will take you to the exciting places of the world, places where tomorrow's history is being made today? Right now, young women like yourself are urgently needed to serve their country in the Women's Army Corps. Here's your opportunity to secure your future. Go to your nearest United States Army and United States Air Force recruiting station and get all the facts today.
This has been another program on Proudly We Hail, presented transcribed in cooperation with this station by the United States Army and United States Air Force Recruiting Service. This program featured a cast of outstanding players. This is Kenneth Banghart speaking and inviting you to tune in the same station next week for another interesting story on Proudly We Hail.
From the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Petri Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invite you to spend the next half hour listening to Dr. Watson tell us another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, the world-famous detective, Sherlock Holmes. As for me, I'd like to leave you with one thought. Namely, the best way to begin a good meal is to start it off with a glass of Petri California Sherry. While you're waiting for dinner to be ready, just sit back, take it easy, and sip some of that wonderful Petri Sherry. Now, there's a wine. Hold that Petri Sherry to the light and look at that rich amber color. Smells good, too, doesn't it? And just wait for that first sip. What a flavor. No kidding, you'll find that Petri Sherry can turn the usual before-dinner lull into a real event. Petri Sherry is the best beginning a good meal ever has. Try it. And say, if you like your sherry dry, not sweet, just ask for Petri California Pale Dry Sherry. But no matter how you like it, you're sure to like it if the label says Petri. See for yourself. And now for the weekly visit with our good friend and host, Dr. Watson. Tonight we find him on the stage of the Paramount Theater in Hollywood. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, Mr. Bartell. If you've bought a victory bond, you're welcome.
I have, Doctor. Now, what's the recipe for tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure?
Well, now let me see. Take equal parts of beautiful English countryside and black villainy. Mix them, add a dash of romance, a sprinkling of danger, season well with the usual theatrical condiments, and you have the case of the accidental murderess.
Sounds like a tasty dish. How did the story begin, Doctor?
On a beautiful summer day in 1895, Holmes had just concluded his famous investigation of the sudden death of Cardinal Tosca, an inquiry which was carried out at the express desire of His Holiness the Pope. And in consequence, the great man felt that a couple of weeks' rest in the heart of Warwickshire would be a pleasant change after our rather strenuous adventures in Italy. And so, Mr. Bartell, we went to Stratford-on-Avon.
Oh, the home of Shakespeare, huh?
Quite right, my boy. As a matter of fact, that was the reason that decided us to go there. Holmes was a great lover of the drama, And at the time my story begins, the Shakespearean Festival was in full swing. For the first week, our life there was calm and peaceful. During the daytime, we visited the local places of interest, such as Anne Hathaway's cottage and Shakespeare's birthplace, and the evenings found us at the theater. It was on a Tuesday, I remember, during our second week's stay, that the trouble began. Holmes and I had gone for a walk through the nearby forest of Avon. He was in unusually good spirits that morning, and there was a distinct twinkle in his eye as he said,
Watson, for once I begin to wish that I were a man of wealth.
Oh, and what makes you say that, Holmes?
The beauty of this place, old fellow. I'm perfectly certain I'd be happy in retirement here. It's rather depressing to think that in a week or two the sordid necessity of making money will demand my return to Baker Street in a world of criminals.
No, I must say that in an environment like this, it is a little hard to think of crime. How does the old saying go? Where every prospect pleases, and only man is vile.
Yes, but Shakespeare puts it even better, old chap.
Oh, really? What's he say?
Well, surely you remember the speech in As You Like It. We saw the production 2 nights ago.
Oh, I don't remember the speech. How did it go?
In this setting, it's really remarkably apposite. Are not these woods more free from peril than the envious courts? Here feel we but the penalty of Adam, the season's difference. Don't you remember? Sweet are the uses of adversity, which like the toad, ugly and venomous, wears yet a precious jewel in his head. And this our life exempt from public haunts finds tongues in trees, books in the running brooks, sermons in stones, and good in everything. I would not change it.
Upon my soul, you read that much better than the fellow on the stage the other night.
Don't tell me I adopted the wrong profession, Watson. Oh, dear me, wait a minute. Path seems to end here. Nothing but dense trees ahead of us.
There's another path over there. I think it leads down to the river.
Then let's follow it. The Avon is always...
Great Scott, that was a... Holmes! Holmes, you hurt?
Yes, I think I am. Bullet hit my shoulder. I think it's only grazed it.
Well, get off your coat quickly. Let's have a look.
It's only a scratch. First, let's find out where it was fired from. I heard the thud of a bullet in the tree behind me. Yes, here we are. Give me a penknife, old fellow, will you?
There you are.
Thanks.
Do you suppose that shot was deliberate?
Oh, I can't imagine someone mistaking me for a rabbit, Watson. By the way, there was a curious echo to that shot. I don't know whether you noticed it. Uh-huh. Here's the bullet. Now, let me see. I was standing there. A line from this bullet hole in the tree through the spot where I was standing would indicate that the shot was fired from that cluster of trees over there. Come on, Watson. Let's see what a search discloses.
I wish you'd let me look at that shoulder before you start galloping all over the countryside, Holmes. You're bleeding quite profusely.
Oh, plenty of time to look at it when we... Hello. Look over there.
A man and woman running towards us across the clearing.
Yes, and carrying guns.
Yes, it looks as if it was an accident after all.
Was anyone hurt?
Yes, sir. My friend was hit in the shoulder.
Oh, how dreadful. It's not a bad wound, is it?
Oh, it's only a scratch, madam, I hope.
But the blood on your coat.
Well, just, how did this accident happen, sir?
Well, we were out rabbit shooting. I was teaching my wife to use a rifle.
I saw a rabbit scurry across the clearing. I raised the rifle and fired. It seemed to me, Geoffrey, that as I did so, you jolted my arm.
Yes, I'm afraid I did, Alice. I was going to fire too, but as I raised my rifle, I jolted your elbow and sent your shot wild. I can't tell you how sorry I am, sir. Here's my card. Of course, we'll take care of any expenses that may be entailed.
Well, the first thing to do is to find out how much damage has been done. You'd better take your coat off, old fellow.
I don't think I can.
Oh, he's badly hurt.
No, it's just that...
The man fainted.
Oh, this is dreadful. I have a horse and trap down the road.
Excellent. Give me a hand with him, will you? I must get him to a hospital as fast as possible. Holmes, you feeling any better?
Has the nurse gone?
Yes. She's bringing the house surgeon.
And the man and his wife?
They're down in the hospital waiting room.
Oh.
I found out their name. It's Markham.
Then we're alone.
Yes, old fellow.
In that case, I can stop behaving as if I were at death's door.
Holmes, you mean that you shammed that collapse just now?
Yes, I did, Watson.
Oh.
Well, spare me a little pity, old chap. My shoulder's confoundedly painful, I assure you.
Well, I'm sure it is. But what made you pretend to faint?
I recognized this Mrs. Markham, and I think she recognized me. It's important she assume I'm out of action for a while.
Oh?
Mrs. Markham. Why? Well, Mrs. Markham is, in reality, the notorious Mrs. Dangerfield. You remember the Dangerfield case?
The Dangerfield? Great Scott, yes. She was tried for the murder of her husband by poisoning, wasn't she?
Yes, she was, old fellow. She was acquitted when the jury decided he was an habitual arsenic addict who happened to take an accidental overdose.
Well, didn't you have some connection with the case?
It was I who tracked down the sale of the arsenic she claimed to have bought for cosmetic purposes.
Well, if you ask me, that shot at you was no accident.
Oh, of course it wasn't. I'm certain that I was recognized. In any case, her record is a bad one. Prior to her husband's death, there was an episode in which her uncle was killed in a shooting accident on a grouse moor in Scotland. An uncle who left her a large fortune on his death.
And I suppose Mrs. Dangerfield was a member of the shooting party when the accident happened.
Yes, she was. Now, she's something of a femme fatale, Watson. I must plan my actions very cautiously. I'm up against a dangerous opponent.
Well, you'll have to stay in the hospital until your wound's being examined and dressed.
That's true, old fellow. And while the local staff are taking care of that, I want you to shadow the Markhams.
Of course I will, Holmes.
Stick close to them, old fellow. Make them believe that I'm going to be kept here for some days. Find out as much as you can, and then report to me.
Right, I'll do my best. It's awfully kind of you, Mrs. Markham, to insist on having me back to your house for lunch.
My dear Dr. Watson, after injuring the famous Mr. Holmes, it's the least I could do.
Of course it is.
Jeffrey, dear, will you bring us some sherry? It's Ada's day off, you know.
Very well, Alice. Is anyone else coming to lunch?
Only Dennis Romney.
Oh, Lord, that fellow seems to live here. Well, I'll go and get the sheriff.
Sit down, won't you, Dr. Watson?
Thank you, madam. Thank you.
You say that you think Mr. Holmes will be in the hospital for some days?
I'm afraid so. The wound wasn't serious. He lost quite a bit of blood.
Oh, I feel perfectly dreadful about it.
Well, you mustn't blame yourself too much, madam. It was an accident.
Yes, but I might so easily have killed him.
Well, you haven't, and that's all that matters. Did you say that Dennis Romney was coming to lunch? Is that the actor fellow from the Memorial Theater?
Yes. Have you seen him on the stage?
Yes. Several times. Holmes and I have been going to the festival regularly since we came down here.
A fine actor, isn't he? A shame they give him such poor parts.
Oh, it was really good.
Imagine him letting that frightful Basil Grant play Hamlet last night, while Dennis only played Laertes. Dennis is 3 times a better actor.
I suppose he is.
He's coaching me in acting.
Oh, coaching you? Really?
Yes, he thinks that I may be able to get small parts here next season. I've always had a great urge to go on the stage, but no one's ever encouraged me before. Oh, here's Jeffrey.
This sherry's rather special, Doctor. Jerez de la Frontera. Only a few bottles left.
Oh, that's very nice of you, sir.
Oh, that must be Dennis. I'll go let him in.
We might as well have a drink. You'll find it'll help making this actor fellow more tolerable.
I take it, Mr. Markham, that you're not an admirer of Mr. Dennis Romney.
Can't bear him. He's always quoting Shakespeare and behaving generally as if he were another Irving. He's got Alice completely fooled. Here's a glass, Doctor.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Dennis, I want to introduce you to Dr. Watson.
How do you do, Mr. Romney?
How do you do, sir? Hello, Jeffrey.
Want a glass of sherry?
Thanks. That'd be very nice. Are you a disciple of the theater, Dr. Watson?
Well, hardly a disciple, sir, but I've been attending the festival during the last week. I enjoyed your performances immensely, if I may say so.
Oh, you may say so, Doctor. Here's your sherry, Dennis.
Oh, don't be cross-headed, Jeffrey. And please remember that Dennis is our guest.
Oh, it's all right, Alice. I know that Jeffrey's bark is a good deal worse than his bite.
And what play are you appearing in tonight, Mr. Romney?
King Lear. I shall once again portray the thankless role of the King of France. Well, that incredibly bad actor, Basil Grant, tears a multitude of passions to tatters in his rendition of Lear. Oh, horrible, horrible, most horrible.
I thought his Hamlet was atrocious last night, Dennis.
Wasn't it? When he came to his final line, the rest is silence. It was as much as I could do to prevent cheering.
I felt rather the same way when you were killed in the duel, Dennis.
Oh, Jeffrey, you're being intolerably rude. Why don't you take Dr. Watson upstairs and show him your butterfly collection? Then at least you'll know what you're talking about.
Are you interested in butterflies, Doctor? I have quite a rare collection.
Oh, really? I'd like to see them very much.
Come on, then. I think we've just got time before lunch.
Try and bring yourself down with a few better manners, Jeffrey, dear.
I'm really quite an easygoing man, Doctor, but The arrogance of that fellow Romney infuriates me.
Well, I must say he does seem to have rather a good opinion of himself.
Don't put too much weight on that balcony rail. It's absolutely full of wormholes. Part of the attraction of an old house, my wife tells me. But I regard it as confoundedly dangerous. Yeah, and this is my little museum. In these cases, I think you'll find some of the finest specimens of Lepidoptera you've ever seen. It's my hobby, and I may say that, with the exception of the Natural History Museum, I doubt if you'll find a finer collection.
It must have taken you years to collect them.
It has. Many years, many disappointments, and a great deal of patience. Look at this fella. He's my prize specimen, a North American monarch.
North American monarch? Beautiful, beautiful.
Isn't he? And this is an admiral.
Yes, of course I know him.
Rare. And this is a perfect bee-hawk moth.
Bee-hawk moth?
Here's an emperor. Ever see more exquisite markings?
Well, never. Tell me, Mr. Markham, when you captured a butterfly, how'd you kill it without marking it in any way?
With poison.
Oh? What poison?
Cyanide.
Not arsenic?
You heard me say cyanide, Doctor.
The only reason I mention it is that a friend of mine collected butterflies once, and I'm certain that he always used arsenic to kill them.
Why do you keep talking of arsenic? You're trying to hint at something.
No, my dear fellow. I was just curious, that's all.
Yes. A trifle too curious, perhaps. There's the luncheon gong. Let's go downstairs again.
So, man, I didn't mean to offend you.
No, of course you didn't. But my nerves are a little on edge today. Must be that accident to your friend that's upset him. I really must get that balcony rail mended. Shh.
What is it, sir?
My wife. Young Romney. They're going into lunch. Listen.
Darling, why won't he understand?
But you expect Mr. Dennis. Jeffrey has no imagination. He's never understood me.
Well, Doctor, they say that listeners never hear good of themselves. You know, sometimes I wonder if my wife wouldn't like me out of the way. Let's go down to lunch, shall we?
So, Holmes, that's the story up to now.
A very interesting one, too, Watson. So you think that Mrs. Markham is planning to kill her husband, eh?
Oh, it's obvious. She's in love with the actor fellow, Dennis Romney. Her husband's in the way, and if she doesn't want to use poison this time, there's a perfect setting for murder in that crumbling balustrade on the landing.
Mm-hmm.
One push when he wasn't looking, and it'd be the end of him. And no one could prove that she did it.
A charming household. And Mr. Markham became very evasive, you say, when you mentioned arsenic.
Yes. I said it deliberately, of course, to see how he'd react. If you ask me, he knows that his wife has arsenic at the house. He was trying to protect her.
You've exerted your charm sufficiently to arrange to see them again, I trust.
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I have. They're taking a picnic tea and going boating on the Avon this afternoon. They asked me to join them. Of course, I agreed. I just rushed back here to the hospital to report to you first.
You've done splendidly, Watson, splendidly.
Oh, thanks so much, Will. But I've been so busy telling you what I've found out that I haven't asked you about you. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm fine, old fellow, fine.
What did the house surgeon discover?
A very interesting fact. Look in the drawer beside my bed, will you?
Great Scott, it's a bullet.
A bullet that the house surgeon removed from my shoulder.
But we found a bullet in the tree also.
Precisely. Therefore, 2 bullets were fired.
But, good Lord, that means...
It means, old chap, that we have a dangerous task ahead of us. Not to solve a murder, but to prevent one.
We'll hear the rest of Dr. Watson's unusual story in just a moment. Meanwhile, I'd like to remind you that good cooking becomes wonderful cooking if you serve your good food with a Petri wine. If you like a red wine, say with meat or any meat dish, try Petri California Burgundy. If white wine's your favorite, then you'll love Petri California Sauterne. It's wonderful. But Burgundy or Sauterne, whichever you prefer, it's just bound to be good if you see the letters Petri on the bottle. Because Petri wine is always good wine. And now, Dr. Watson, what happened next? We left you at Sherlock Holmes' bedside in the hospital. Did the picnic with Mr. and Mrs. Markham prove an exciting one?
No, it was rather unpleasant, as a matter of fact. The 3 of them kept squabbling all the time, and just as we were coming home, something unforeseen occurred. Mr. Markham fell into the river.
Well, pardon the old question, Doctor, but did he fall or was he pushed?
It was hard for me to say. I had my back to him when he fell. Of course, we fished him out and rattled him back home in a trap as fast as we could. He changed his clothes at once, and as we sat round the fire a little later, I could see that he'd caught a chill. In fact, I recommended that he go to bed and stay there. Mrs. Markham agreed with me.
Jeffrey, dear, I do wish you'd follow Dr. Watson's advice and go to bed.
For the 5th time, Alice, I will not go to bed. I'm perfectly all right. No, it's no thanks to you and Dennis.
What do you mean by that remark, Jeffrey?
You know perfectly well what I mean. It wasn't an accident that I fell in the river just now. One of you two pushed me when I was struggling with the punt pole in the long reeds.
Jeffrey, you're talking rubbish.
Am I? You were in the boat, Dr. Watson. Didn't you see what happened?
No, I didn't, sir. My back was turned to you when you fell in.
Well, then we'll call it an accident. An accident that happened by a curious coincidence, just where the river is deepest and the reeds thickest.
Jeffrey, I don't like your tone. You can accuse me of anything you like, but when you start suggesting that
If
Alice...
you don't like the way I talk to my wife, I suggest that you don't come to my house. I'm going to get a scarf. I'm silly.
Dr. Watson, I must apologize for my husband's behavior. I don't know what's come over him.
Oh, that's quite all right, Mr. Markham. I quite understand.
Well, I wish I did. I don't mind him yelling at me, but he's being so abominably rude to you, Alice. The last couple of weeks, it's been getting worse than ever.
I know. Ever since we had that argument about the insurance policies, he's been unbearable.
Insurance?
Yes, Doctor. We took out quite large policies on each other's lives recently.
You didn't tell me that, Alice.
Well, it was his idea. And yet when the insurance man came here, you'd have thought I was forcing him into taking out the policy.
Insurance? Great Scott,
You what, Doctor?
Nothing, Mr. Markham. Nothing at all.
Sounds as if you don't approve of insurance, sir.
Oh, it's not that, Romney. It's just that
Who can that be? I wasn't expecting anyone. Answer the door, Dennis, will you?
Yes. Sounds as if Jeffrey has already done so.
Alice, we have a visitor.
Holmes, you shouldn't be up.
Good evening, Mrs. Markham. Hello, Watson.
Well, I'm delighted to see you, Mr. Holmes. So I understood from your friend that you'd be in the hospital for several days.
The constitution of an ox and the obstinacy of a mule, two characteristics of mine, have combined in making possible an early departure from the hospital. How do you do, Mr. Romney? I think I've seen you at the theater. My name is Sherlock Holmes.
How do you do, sir?
You'll stay to supper, I hope.
If it's not inconvenient, Mrs. Markham.
Of course it isn't. I'll go in and arrange for it.
Upon my soul, Holmes, I'm glad to see you.
And are you, old fellow? Let's take a stroll on the terrace, shall we? It's rather warm inside this evening.
You can go out through the French windows.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Markham.
Holmes, are you quite sure that you're well enough to go walking about?
Of course I am. You must tell me, Watson, what the latest developments are. In the meantime, I myself have not been idle. Yes, Watson, I think our stage is set, and I have a feeling that I may contribute to a rather dramatic last act curtain.
A delightful meal, Mrs. Markham.
Well, thank you, Doctor. Mr. Holmes, you're not eating very much.
My appetite is a trifle jaded. The mental fencing that we have indulged in during the meal has been somewhat disturbing.
I don't understand you.
Oh, come now, madam. I know that you were once Mrs. Dangerfield, and you know that I know it. Why keep up the pretense any longer?
Very well, Mr. Holmes. But we needn't converse in lowered voices. I'm sure that you've told Dr. Watson whatever there is to know, and perhaps more.
I admire your courage, madam.
Jeffrey, Dennis.
Yes, sir.
I want you to listen to this. Mr. Sherlock Holmes knows that I was once Mrs. Dangerfield. He's apparently under the impression that this is a dark secret of mine. Mr. Holmes, Jeffrey knew and loved me before I ever married Mr. Dangerfield.
Of course I did, Holmes.
He stood by me during the horrible trial after my first husband's death. And I told Dennis about the whole miserable business months ago. So I really don't see that you've uncovered any great secret.
Not yet, Mrs. Markham, but I have a feeling that it's only a matter of moments.
So you haven't got any secrets from Dennis either, eh?
There's no need to shout, Jeffrey.
And there's no need for Dennis to be in my house. Get out, Romney, and stay out. This business between you and Alice has gone far enough.
I'll go when Alice tells me to.
Well, if you won't go, then I'm not going to sit here. I'm going upstairs.
You're shaking like a leaf, sir. You've got a fever. Don't you think you'd better go to bed?
Mind your own business and leave me alone.
Mrs. Markham, I really think you should persuade your husband to go upstairs and lie down.
Don't worry, Mr. Holmes. I know how to handle him. I'll take him up. Put an arm around my shoulder, Jeffrey. Come along.
We should follow them, Holmes. They have to pass that crumbling banister on the landing. With him in that state, she might try to...
What are you suggesting, Doctor? Come and watch, both of you. We can observe them both from the foot of the stairs here.
They're on the landing. She's on the outside. Look, 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 look. Markham stumbled against her. He's pushed her against the railing. Look out! Come on, sir.
Alice, are you all right?
Yes, but Jeffrey tried to push me through the railing.
That's a lie.
No, it isn't, sir. The three of us were watching you from below.
But the railing held. I don't understand.
I can explain that, Watson. This afternoon, while you were all at your picnic, I came here with a local carpenter. You had informed me, old fellow, that it was the maid's day off, and I took the liberty of reinforcing that decaying woodwork.
What the blazes do you think you've been up to, Holmes?
Preventing murder, sir, and finding the true solution to the Dangerfield case.
What do you mean, Mr. Holmes? The true solution?
Surely it's obvious to you, Mrs. Markham. You have told us that your present husband loved you before you married Mr. Dangerfield. It was he who accidentally killed your uncle so that you might inherit a fortune. It was he who accidentally gave your first husband an overdose of arsenic. Arsenic that he obtained for the purpose of destroying butterflies.
Yes, it was he who tried to send you to your death for pushing you through those railings. And all the time, Mrs. Markham, I thought that you were the potential murderer.
You fellows have got hold of the wrong end of the stick. All I've been trying to do is to conceal the fact that my wife was a murderess.
Jeffrey, how can you say that?
Markham, if you will... Just a moment, Mr. Romney. I'm not through with him yet.
This talk is all very dramatic, Mr. Holmes, but I wonder how you're going to be able to prove it.
Dr. Watson, Mr. Romney, and I will testify to the attempt that you've just made on Mrs. Markham's life.
Yes, and what about the attempt on your life, Holmes? Obviously, it was Markham who fired at you in the woods.
But my wife has already admitted firing the shot.
True, sir. But 2 shots were fired. The one that your wife fired, we found in the tree. The one that you fired was extracted from my shoulder in the hospital.
And the 2 shots were fired simultaneously.
You remember, Watson, that I commented at the time on a curious echo. Mrs. Markham told us that her arm was jolted as she pulled the trigger. That was when the other rifle was fired. Mr. Markham didn't want me on the scene when he staged his latest accident, and so he tried to kill me.
What kind of a devil have I been living with all these years?
I think I'm going to kill you,
Don't come near me. Keep him away from me.
Lead him to the law courts, Mr. Romney. British justice may be slow, as indeed it was in the Dangerfield case, but in the long run, it is sure. You'll find that out, Mr. Markham, on the gallows.
Well, tell me, Doctor, did Mr. Markham finally end on the gallows?
Yes, he did. And it might interest you to know that Mrs. Markham and Dennis Romney were married. A nice chap and a fine actor, that boy.
Maybe that's what I should have been. An actor. To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether it is noble in the mind to suffer. Well, what's the matter, Doctor? Don't you like it?
The words are beautiful, but your delivery of them...
Not good, huh?
Not good, Mr. Bartow.
Okay. I'd rather talk about Petri wine anyway. Now, there's something to really talk about. Petri wine. A wine with generations of winemaking behind it. That's a fact, you know. The Petri family started making Petri wine generations ago. Oh, way back in the 1800s. So they've had the time to develop the art of winemaking, and they've been able to hand down that art from father to son, from father to son. Yes, the Petri family really knows how to turn luscious, sun-ripened California grapes into clear, fragrant, delicious wine. And those letters, P-E-T-R-I, on the bottle, are the personal assurance of the Petri family that every drop of Petri wine is good wine. It's got to be. Because don't forget, Petri took time to bring you good wine. Well, Dr. Watson, what new Sherlock Holmes story are you going to tell us next week?
Well, now, let me see. Next week, Mr. Bartell, I'm going to tell you an exciting adventure Holmes and I had in North Africa. It begins at the headquarters of the Foreign Legion and ends with a strange death in the Cafe of 1,000 Sighs. I call the story Murder in the Casbah.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and was suggested by an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Adventure of Black Peter. Music is by Dean Fossler. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California, invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. This is Harry Bartell saying good night for the Petri family. This program originated in the Paramount Theater in Hollywood for an audience of Victory Bon buyers. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.